You are listening to the Mountainside Podcast. This is our 150th episode, and our returning guest is Coach Marc Montoya. He is one of the most prominent coaches in the UFC and mixed martial arts. He's an absolute pillar in the community and one of my favorite humans. It was an absolute honor and privilege to have him be the 150th. I'm honored to call him a friend. This was an incredible episode, and I hope you enjoy the listen. Well, welcome back in, man. It's awesome to see you. It's been almost a year.
I know.
Believe it or not.
I know. I feel like every time I come up here, it's freaking snowing. I'm like,
and we got to quit recording in the winter, right? Do like some fly fishing or
exactly.
something. And then
The big deal is that it's actually not snowing. There is snow on the ground, but it's cold as heck right now outside. So, but this time of year, I'm usually home because we have time off in the UFC schedule. So we're just getting ramped back up. So, hey, man, it's always a pleasure and honor being here. Thank you guys for inviting me back. You had messaged me, said, hey, this is your 150th episode. And I was like, cool, man, let's rock and roll. Let's do it. I'd love to be there.
Nobody better I'd want to do it with too, man. Like, you helped me bring this thing in. We're here, episode 4, like right at the start of it. So I was like, you're really a reason why we have an audience. And I know I've said that before, but like, you came on, we talked about so many different people that in that first episode, like I think we talked about some of the Denver Broncos, some of those guys reshared it.
Sure.
Cam reshared it. We talked about Cam at nauseum, and it was crazy. It was like overnight success after we had Marc on. So
you're like overnight success. You've been doing it for years. Isn't that the case, right? They're like, man, you're an overnight success. You're like, bro, I've been doing this for a minute.
Yeah.
No, you guys are killing it. I love watching all the content you guys are putting out. You've had some of my friends on here. You've also had some of my athletes on here. You've had people I never knew about that I've listened to, especially on my travels throughout, you know, the UFC schedule that we have and fighting schedule we have. So it's always a good way to spend some of my time, and most of my time is watching fighting and planning and game planning. But sometimes when you just want to get off the work track, it's always nice to just kind of go mindless and listen to some cool stuff, cool stories.
Dumbasses.
So it's been fun, but yeah, thank you, man. Thanks for having me back. It's cool to be back. We're in 2024 and just starting it, and
we're going on our 4th year here.
I know. Congratulations. You got a new studio. I mean, it's not brand new, but it's new from where you started.
I think we're staying here for a while.
Good.
Until I can afford the full on like compound with like a boxing ring and the heavy bag and the gym and the archery range and the go-kart track and pool tables.
That sounds like Joe Rogan money.
Yeah, I need that Spotify 100 mil.
Yeah, exactly. You and I both.
Yeah, hell yeah. But yeah, dude, it's been so awesome, man. It's really turned into something that I never intended it to be, and now I'm just having fun with it. I'm trying to get a bit more immersive with it. Like, we're starting to do some stuff like outside the studio, right? Like, me and Dustin Jacoby went up to the archery range and shot, 40 targets. I had him shooting like 100 yards at one point, and
I saw that. That's cool.
That was fucking fun. I couldn't believe the way he showed up there and just crushed it, dude.
Yeah,
like,
he's
truly gifted.
I love Dustin. He's such a good athlete, and he's definitely gifted. We play a lot of golf together too. That's the other thing is Dustin, myself, one of my coaches, Randy Caruso, my son, and a few other buddies are pretty consistent golfing pairs, but Dustin, anything Dustin touches, he's really good at. And so we go, Dustin and I go pheasant hunting together. We spend more than just training together. So, over the years, I introduced Dustin when he first came here to some of my really good childhood friends. And so he's made some just relationships that way and kept kind of intertwined in all of that stuff with hunting and golf and all those things. So
I heard he's quite the golfer too.
Yeah, he is a good golfer. We have fun. We absolutely get in there and have a lot of fun just playing and betting and winning and losing. So yeah, it's fun. He's a great person. Love having him, and he and I have a good decade together of just coach athlete. So
that's so badass.
Not just but like I said, not just in fighting. We've done more than just the fighting thing, and done a lot of life together. So and traveled the world together.
That's awesome, man. He's a great guy. He's become a friend, from being on here. And
it's hard not to, most people love Dustin. So
everybody loves
and
Dustin.
And he befriends anybody. Like we always tease him, he'll get in an Uber, start talking to the Uber driver. Next thing you know, the Uber driver's his biggest fan coming to his next fight. So it's such a telltale story of Dustin for sure.
Yeah, no, it's so badass. It was funny. We just had Brandon Royval in a little while ago, and I think it was either him or Cody, because we just had Cody in as well. But I think they were telling that story about him like befriending an Uber driver, and they just happened to meet him. But like the one instance that I went out with Dustin, and then we went to Keys on the Green for lunch afterwards, and everybody was like his buddy in there, like he made like 4 new friends while we were in there.
That sounds like a Dustin story. Yeah. And it was probably Cody telling that story, because Cody and I have always given Dustin that same hard time story about he pretty much befriends anyone. The next thing you know, they're his best friend coming to his next fight, even if it was in Tokyo. So
right.
But yeah, he's a great guy. Obviously, Brandon and I have a long relationship together. Cody has been such a good addition to our team over the years.
What an awesome kid.
Yeah,
man.
so
he's not a kid. What an awesome man.
Yeah, for sure.
To you and me, we got a few years on him.
Exactly, a few years.
No, yeah, it's so yeah, we've been doing a lot more like immersive type stuff. I'd love to get out and do something with you, either go fishing or go shoot bows or something when it's not so damn cold,
I know, I would love to too. It seems like that's why I said every time I come here, I feel like I come here when it's snowing or it's 20 degrees outside. So yeah, we need to do that for sure.
And it got cold today, but
it did get cold today.
Yeah.
But it's going to get colder, I guess. And then next week's
supposed to be.
It's supposed to actually warm up toward the end of next week, which like in the 40s, 50s.
So
for
really?
us, yeah, heck yeah. That's or at least in Denver, but not up here.
That's T-shirt weather, bro.
Yeah. Well, I don't live up here, so. But yeah, it's
as long as the sun's out, it's T-shirt weather.
Agree.
I think that's like the misconception here is like 30 degrees here is totally different than 30 degrees on the East Coast, right? Like,
fact. 30 degrees here is 30
humidity.
degrees. You go on the East Coast and 30, you're talking whole different bone chilling cold, and it's just, the other thing is that the moisture and the snow never goes away when you start going toward the East Coast in the winter. It just seems to stick around forever. And so it's one of the things that I love about Colorado is it's just, we constantly have those 300 plus days of sunshine, and it's incredible weather. Even when it's cold, like right now, it's sunny out. So, yeah, it's 20 degrees, but it doesn't feel like it's -7 at least yet. At least yet.
It's crazy. You'll be in humidity like that, and it'll be 35 degrees, and it feels like it's -10 or something.
Yes,
man.
yeah.
I'm not used to it, I guess.
No,
but
I think the shitty weather goes along with the shitty attitudes in the East Coast.
Yes.
So.
Fuck you, pal. Like
my wife's whole family.
I kind of like that though. Like were a little bit, because I've worked a lot like in the garden and stuff with like the Local One dudes and stuff. All the rock and roll touring that I used to do, and I kind of miss it because you knew the minute you walked in the door, you were going to get your chops busted. And like. That camaraderie is kind of fun, when you're around it. If it's on the street, it's a different thing,
Well, it's on the street constantly. That's the other thing. Because it's just, you can't get away from it.
You got to be careful nowadays what you say on the street. Somebody might shoot
I'm with
ass,
you. I know.
It's crazy.
It is wild. But, so congratulations to you guys. And again, thank you for having me, man.
It's always an honor to have you here, man. So, like, I love having you in. You've been a huge mentor to me, really. Just the way that you approach everything is kind of how I've approached this a little bit, going into the podcast and just doing my own thing and just kind of not fuck everybody, but like, just with that mindset of let's just do it our way. Who cares what anybody thinks?
I mean, you have to pick a path, you have to lead, and it's a pleasure and an honor to hear you say that. It's also, that's a lot of love coming from you. So thank you. The thing is, you've picked a path and you've said, hey, let's try to work this thing this way. And as you're finding out when you're the tip of the spear, it doesn't always work out exactly how you envision. But all those revisions you have to make are part of why you're successful, or you don't become successful. You do something else. And so to revise, plan, and continue to grow and strive for what you're doing is a cool thing. And it's, again, like I said, it's I'm honored by what you're saying. So
thanks,
thank you,
man. Yeah, no, thank you for the support. Like, it's really, I guess, just the discipline of just coming in here and just doing it, you know, like we haven't really missed, let's see, we started in March. So, you know, an episode a week on average.
Sure.
You know, there's a few weeks that we've missed there or whatever, but that takes commitment, you know,
it does.
So yeah, I'm proud of it, dude. And it's only getting funner. Like yesterday, was it yesterday? No, it wasn't yesterday. Derek, when did we do Stop the Bleed? It was this week, right?
Yeah, that was Monday.
Oh shit. Okay. Crazy.
Every time I saw that, I was like, oh man, look at this thing.
Yeah.
I saw that online. And I
Oh,
was
you
like,
did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you saw her post.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. You know, this podcast has led me to build so many friendships, and one of those guys was Sam Boyer-Goff, he's a critical care flight paramedic. I always butcher this, and he's a SWAT medic here in the state of Colorado.
Right.
And we've had him on the podcast twice, and it was awesome. I said, hey, you know, I need to sharpen my skills and like I own tourniquets and stuff, but I don't know how to set them like properly.
Sure.
So he's like, well, I'll come up and give you a class. And he's like, and if any of the guys want to come up or whatever, let's just do it. Let's just get it done. But he brought like a whole bleed trainer. Like I wasn't really expecting that. So we put down plastic out here and shit, and we're stuffing gauze into like an actual like bleeding training tool, I guess, that they use.
Right.
Which was really gracious of him, because I guess like that blood, it's some sort of special blood or something. It's like $300 a gallon or something. Wow. We probably spilt a gallon in here for sure. Like everybody getting after it, but that's just the type of person he is, you know? So it's super fun. And I feel so much more confident in like, okay, now I know how to actually use this shit. Right.
Sure.
You can have all the tools in the world, but if you don't know how to use them,
sure.
You know, what's the point?
Well, it's interesting. I was watching that, and then I have to actually part of a men's group that I've been part of forever, and you know, some of my closest friends have become part of that group. Well, there's 8 of us in there, and 4 of them this weekend they left today. They are going up to Canada to do some heli-skiing. And
hell yeah.
I'm not a big skier, snowboarder, whatever. I did it when I was younger. I haven't done it in, who knows, probably been 20 years. But anyway, they're super into the heli-skiing and or wanted to do it. And so it's one of those dream come true type trips for them. But when you're talking about you're in the middle of nowhere, you better know your shit. You know, that's why I was like, okay, explain to me, fellas, how all this works, because I'm not into heli-skiing, but it sounds dope as hell.
Anything with a helicopter.
Yeah, cool, exactly. But you know what they say, you know, those helicopters, they're destined to come down.
Yeah.
Anyway, a trip like that sounds absolutely like a trip of a lifetime. I know all those guys are super pumped to go do that. And the 4 guys that are going, you know, they were just talking about how it is and what their expectations are, and you could just see the gleam in their eyes to go do it. And I said, well, how cold is it? And they said, well, the high is going to be -7. I said, -7? And you know, they were showing me pictures of just this powder like coming over your head, and how they drop from the helicopter on top, and then they just let them go, and the weather has to be right in order to go do all that stuff.
There's got to be some sort of planning. Is it guided or?
No, it's guided,
okay,
but
good.
I don't know the answer to. I don't know the answer to.
I would imagine you have to get picked up somewhere, right? Like you're not.
Yeah,
just
you have to be picked
back
up
to Anchorage.
No. You have to be picked up somewhere. But the point is, I think they drop them off, you know, from the helicopter.
Yeah.
The 4 guys. Maybe there's a guide with them. I don't know. And then they ski down to whatever destination, and then they continue to do the elevation of going up and down, up and down. So it sounds cool, but like you're saying, you know, you want to make sure you're immersed and well versed into shit goes down that you got good knowledge. So
shit, man, even just going to the grocery store, like that's what Sam brought up. He's like, dude, the average response time for an ambulance is like 4.5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
If you're in a city. So like up here, it's probably double that, right?
Yeah.
And if you have an arterial bleed, you're going to bleed out in 3 minutes. So if it's a major artery, so like a femoral artery or what's the one in the neck?
Carotid. Yeah.
Yeah, you're screwed basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and he was even just saying like, just no CPR.
Of course.
He was like that.
Of course.
He's like, I've never been on a call where civilian CPR didn't start where the person lived. Which is crazy. So
Yeah, crazy.
He's like, just no CPR and stop the bleeding. You're good.
Sure.
Like,
that's cool.
Know how to set a tourniquet. It's pretty easy, man. Like,
yeah,
pull the tourniquet as tight as you can and start turning that bitch and tell somebody it's going to hurt real bad.
It's going to hurt real bad. Yeah, exactly.
We found that out the other day because he had us like putting tourniquets on each other. Dude, how long were your hands red for? I think mine are still... Whatever that fake blood was, like, I had to do the whole podcast, and it looked like I murdered somebody.
Murdered someone? Yeah, that's
or
hilarious.
just got done field dressing.
That's hilarious.
That tourniquet immediately.
Next time I'll be wearing gloves, dude, because like my hands, I went home like a murderer. Right. So
that's why I wear gloves.
I think he got us a little bit there.
That's why I wear gloves in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, there's a lot of blood and spit and just nastiness going on in there, and I'm like,
you don't know where those fighters have been.
Well, I mean, I can see what's going on. I'm like, I don't want two parties stuff all over my hands if I can control it. So that's why not every state requires you to wear those medical gloves, but I wear them every single time I'm in the corner. Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna put these medical gloves on.
What you're touching and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I would imagine. How many of those jerseys that you get that you come home with are just bloodstained? Because
99% of them. Yeah. They're because at the end it's either hugging them because they won or hugging them because they lost. So whatever's on them's getting on me for sure. I've had many times where we were speaking of Jacoby Jones, who's fighting for the LFA title.
Yeah, shout out. I hope he does well tonight.
He's going to kill it. But when he won his last fight, he had grabbed my head. And on top of my head, I had like whatever blood was on his hands or whatever got on top of my head, and I can instantly feel it.
Really?
Oh yeah. I'm like, oh man, I got blood all over me. And so you get blood all over your head or face.
Just even sitting ringside, right? I mean, you guys are right on the ring. Pretty much. Yeah.
Sure. It splatters back sometimes when they're near you, but it's mainly from embracing the guys, whether it's a win or lost after the fight. That's where. Or in the corner, administering advice or whatever's going on there. But that's where all that stuff comes from. But you're not seeing me go in there without a pair of gloves on, medical gloves. No. Well,
that training blood is like different. It's weird. It'll start to clot. There's like a certain type of gauze and a certain type of this blood. And whenever those mix, they make some sort of, so it'll actually like start clotting. So you can actually train like you're stopping the bleed on something. Which is super cool. But whatever dies in that shit, dude, it was, my hands were bright red for 2 days.
Speaking of blood, one of the things that I will never forget my entire life is when you go to the cage and the guys are getting ready to fight, unless they're the very, very, very first fight of the night, there's always a distinct smell when you get to the cage. And one of the things that you always have a smell of his blood, because there's always blood on the canvas or on the whatever top they have on the cage, and that smell of the canvas and the smell of the blood is such a distinct smell that when you're cage side like that, that's whether I never were to coach another fight or not, excuse me, that's a smell that is hard to get out of your mind and your memory. It's something that when I smell, I instantly think, okay, it's time to rock and roll tonight. And so it's almost one of those like old school movies when an old time like silly boxer would hear a bell and then he start shadow boxing. Right. It's almost like that kind of like snap into it type thing.
Sure.
But that blood with the canvas smell is such a distinct smell that over the years it's always been like kind of a trigger of, okay, shit's almost ready to go down.
Wow, I never really thought about it, but like when I'm field dressing an animal too,
sure.
They have it, that blood has a distinct smell.
It does.
You
can't get off
exactly
you either.
What's going on? Yeah, that's wild. I would imagine that's like built into our DNA at some point to be like, once you start having those sort of senses and stuff, there's so much that goes back to, hundreds of years ago where you basically were a warrior or not.
Sure.
And if you weren't surviving much, So I would imagine that that's built into our DNA at some point or something to set off. Like, I've been listening to a lot of Andrew Huberman right now, I'm diving off into something that I don't know about, but like, I would imagine that there's some sort of neuro imprint or something like that triggers some sort of, like, I know just even with that bleed trainer that we were doing the other day, we did all this training leading up to him actually using the bleed trainer was kind of the last part of it. But when that happened, my heart rate elevated, you get that narrow vision, and it was like, oh shit, now I actually have to like stop this from bleeding, right? To pass the test or whatever.
Sure.
And there was no test, there's no certification or anything for it. But just seeing something like that bleed, I don't know, it's weird.
Which is why I think it's important that when people that we rely on to help save us have had so many reps that they don't get tunnel vision, their heart rate doesn't spike crazy, that they've done it enough times to where they still have an optic view of what's going on, but they're present enough to handle said situation, which is why I think it's so, regardless of what you do in life as a profession or not, is that you become great at it because your reps are just up there. So like when doctors are dealing with it, ER doctors, your buddy that was on the podcast, all the things that, or fighting, whatever it is, podcasting, you just get really good at it because of the reps, and your heart rate goes down, and
you're kind of desensitized to it, right?
Slightly, yeah. I don't know if it's desensitization or if it's a just workload where now it's norm, and maybe to a lot of people it's not normal, but now it's normal, and I think experience is part of how you get that, because you hear a lot of times a rookie goes into sports, let's say, regardless of what it is, a rookie goes and everything seems so fast, and the vets are always talking about how everything's slowed down. I think that's the difference is the experience in that, and one of the reasons why vetness is such a valuable tool in life and in sports and whatever it is. Yeah. And so, you're the gentleman that's showing you how to stop an artery from bleeding. He probably had that rush feeling for a while, but now he's like, it's just kind of like my brother's a Denver fireman. Yeah. Some of the things he talks about, I'm like, damn, bro, that's pretty wild, And one of my coaches is actually a Denver policeman in District 4, is actually where I grew up, like Federal and Alameda area. Mm-hmm. So pretty tough neighborhood, a lot of stuff going on down there.
Has been for a long
constantly, time. Before I was born.
They haven't gentrified that yet.
No. I asked him too, I said, you think they'll ever gentrify that area? He's like, hell no. Yeah. It's too deep-seated to do that. But anyway, he's gone and coached with me UFC events, and he has said to me, Coach, this is more intense than any shooting, robbery, chase, whatever I have to go do on the street. And I said, I disagree. I just think you have so much experience in that it just becomes normal hat to you. But if you went and put me over there and people are shooting at you and I don't have the same calmness I have when the stuff's going down inside the UFC cage. So I just think it all stems back to that ultimately.
Experience, yeah. No, I think that, I've had some similar stuff. Like, I've never had to corner somebody in a fight or been in an octagon in front of a huge crowd. But like some of these concert situations that I've been in, like you get that knee knock, you get that little bit of stage fright, like, and I'm sure you've experienced it. It's all kind of the same feeling, narrow vision, shortness of breath, like, a little bit of shakiness. Like doing the Super Bowl halftime was crazy because we had, 7 minutes or something to build the monstrosity of a stage, and everything had to be done right, but we rehearse it for an entire month before it actually happens, just for that fact.
Mm-hmm. No, it's cool. Yeah, it's I think that's the coolness of getting a chance to just live past your youth is you get to experience some of these things, and then you get to experience some of this at the expert level, which is such a cool thing. And
super rad.
That is the hope, is that you're able to do that. And
I've seen people quit firsthand. Like,
Sure.
I can't do it, right?
Sure.
I'm sure you've seen it in your profession. But I think it's also like pushing through that barrier. Like, okay, just having a little bit of faith, right? Like everything's going to be somewhat all right.
Sure.
I don't know what's on the other end of this, but
Sure.
let's go.
No, blind faith goes a long way. I mean, it's, I'm not saying only, but the blind faith is a big deal. Sometimes when we start thinking we're going to control it all is, I think, ludicrous. It's just, you have to have some faith there. Sometimes you have to have straight blind faith. And when you start doing that, I feel like you find a lot, because think about, we always say in my industry, one of the things that makes people great is they keep a white belt mentality, meaning you're just willing to learn from anybody, whether it's the guy next to you, your instructor, the thing you saw on TV, the video you watched on YouTube. You just have that white belt mentality, and that there is a huge deal. Some of that is just blind faith of being like, show me the way. I think sometimes where we get in our own way is we start to get narrow-minded because of our success or experiences, and we lose some of our blind faith. And the vulnerability of all that is part of why you got to an expert level. And of course, the mastery of the basics is the expert level. And so I think the blind faith part isn't the only part, but it's something that, especially as we get going further on in your profession, life, whatever, I think it's very important to know and to understand that you can't lose that piece. That piece, I think, is one of the ways that you continue to grow and learn and prosper and not plateau.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point, man. That is so true. I think keeping that mindset is key in anything. This applies to much more than just martial arts. It can
I'm not even talking that only.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Like the first time you walked into you had probably cornered in some fights prior to the UFC, right?
Yes.
But like the first big audience that you walked into, was there any sort of nervousness there? Or do you remember that time? And
I remember it. Yeah, I remember it vividly.
Seasoned you are now?
Early on in my career, I coached two guys that were at a really high level, and I was a young coach. Is Joe Warren, who was a two-time Greco Olympic world champion and a three-time Bellator world champion. And Chris Camozzi was my first UFC fighter, who you recently had on your podcast. Yeah. They are early on in my career, they were going into a high level. I had Joe Warren, started coaching Joe Warren after he was a world champion. And I was young as a coach. I started coaching in my early 30s. And so it's funny because I'm almost 50, and when I started in my early 30s, 30 years from now seemed like an eternity. Now I'm like, man, I'm almost 20 years into this thing. I'm more on the twilight of my career than I am at the beginning. So it's kind of an interesting thing. But whether I go another 20 years or another 2, who knows? But the point is that, I'm more on the twilight than I have ever been in my entire coaching career. But because of that, I'm also probably the best coach I've ever been because of those experiences. But yeah, going back to your question, those two guys were fighting at a really high level. They weren't just on the regional local scene anymore. And I remember going into those fights and as a young coach having to really, calm myself down. One of the times I remember the most is at the beginning is when Joe Warren it was my first world title opportunity to go into with a fighter and potentially win. And Joe Warren was fighting. I mean, he had some really crazy fights before that, but I always remember this moment. And he was going into this fight in Bellator to win the title again. And he's crazy, like chaotic, if you know Joe. And so I
remember him. I haven't seen his fights in a while.
You should have Joe on here. You would love him.
That'd be awesome.
He's got probably he will kill the internet if you have him on here. But reach out to him because he's awesome. But
I'd love to have him.
Joe's got some crazy stories. So he's traveled around the world just with wrestling and, of course, with MMA. But anyway, he's getting ready to fight for this world title. And he's leaning on me to calm him down, not even asking, but I can just tell, because this is a big moment for both of us to go and win a title, or especially together, our first title. And so I just remember thinking, man, I have to remove myself from this room because I'm freaking out in here. And I don't know any other way to do it except for just remove myself for a second and go collect myself. So I tell Joe, I make something up like, hey, I'm going to go talk to commission real quick, make sure we're still walking at the same time. I don't know what I said, but the point is I left for a split second, and I said, and I remember I found a bathroom just down the hall, and I went and shut the door, and I looked at the mirror, and I was like, dude, you got to get your shit together. Like, you're freaking out over here, and he's looking for you to be the cornerstone of what the hell's going on.
Think about that.
And so I'm sitting there, like, okay, take a few deep breaths. Let's calm down. Yeah, like, bro, you're freaking out. What are you doing? And so, all of that is just inexperience in that moment. And so, when I came back, I was able to collect myself. I was able to be a great coach in the corner. We won the title, and the rest is history there. But yes, that happened. It's especially at the beginning, because it's just not that familiar. And how do you get ready for that stuff? Well, you go immerse yourself. You go jump in the fire, and you let the fire burn out the impurities, and then
you got to kind of push through it, right?
Yeah, and then what's left in the ashes tell the story, and so that's kind of what's it's always been that way throughout what I've done, for sure.
Yeah, no, I have similar feelings. Like just some of the different stuff that I've been on or involved with and stuff like that. It's like I could see where that gets, but even going into like an actual battle, you know what I mean? My hat goes off to those first responders, any active military, anything like that, because it is definitely the next level of all that put together and selfless.
Same. I mean, I just over the holiday break here, this Christmas break, a really good friend of mine that I grew up with, we were childhood friends. He went on early in his youth. I think he was around 18, 19. He entered himself into the Navy in San Diego, became a Navy SEAL, has been in the military his whole basically adult life. And I was just talking to him when he came over. Hadn't seen him in a few years, but him and his family came over around the Christmas time period, and we were talking, and one of the things he was telling me is, he's done, like, he'll be a lifer in the military. He'll be done in a couple years.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
you're still in your 30s or something, like, it's wild.
Yeah, he's done soon, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, man, the amount of sacrifice he's had to give. And he doesn't talk crazily about all of his experiences, but the amount of sacrifice and risk that he's had to give for himself, our country, his family, is just so impressive. And I always have so much gratitude toward our military and personnel that are, our fire, police, first responders, like all those people that are so selfless to go work in a career in a field that has very little to do with them and has a lot to do with us. And every time I see him, I always have a sense of pride that he's a childhood friend and a buddy, because without guys like him, we potentially don't have what we have today. And
100%,
it's so much gratitude toward all of those people and anybody post and present. And, it's such an honor to call people like that, comrades and friends and all that.
Yeah, I have quite a few friends that have served, and some that I've met through the podcast. And I guess one of the things about a lot of them, some of them that have operated at that high level, is they just are genuinely just really good people. They might be a little rough around the edges in certain spots, right? But like,
I mean, they have to be almost.
They don't lie to you.
Sure.
You know what I mean? They'll tell you what they think. Like, it's kind of like you and fighters are kind of the same. It's like the people that face some adversity are so much more at peace sometimes than some of the average everyday people that you see get upset about stupid things, you know? So like,
yeah. It's a very selfless thing that they do. It's impressive. So, thank you and shout out to all those people that do that.
Agreed. So let's, we've been at it for a half an hour already. Easy. We're just rolling here. But yeah, this past year has been a whirlwind for you with everything that you've had go on personally, how many fighters you've cornered this year, like the ups and downs in that, like it's been totally insane. Just me knowing you and following you. But what is kind of the takeaway? Like, I guess, how do you, for me, this is a bit of a learning experience and a selfish question, but how do you manage your time with everything that you got going on to take care of yourself, be part of your family, still be a man of faith, show up at church, and then be there for your fighters?
Oh, very carefully.
Yeah. And then have time to come talk to me.
Well, I think I've been blessed to be put in this position. So management of time has to do with purpose. And so I think the biggest thing is what's the purpose, and not losing sight of purpose. And so, the 2023 was the toughest physically tough year I've ever had in my entire life, because as you guys potentially remember or not, I was diagnosed with cancer and had cancer in my kidney removed, and it was just a tough deal, just physically. It was not. There were so many nights and times that I just couldn't sleep. Appetite was messed up.
I'm so glad you're here, bro.
And me too. Yeah. I feel really blessed. So I'm not complaining. I'm just, the facts are that it was a really tough year to physically manage. But purpose is why I was able to continue to just navigate through all of it. And I've been, God put me in this position to just impact others and my family and do the things that I get to do. I get to run a gym. I get to be around 1% type people, fighters and students and my family and friends and just I get to do all that stuff. And I think the sense of purpose doesn't become cumbersome, because the management of time has everything to do with purpose. And so if you know your why, why are you doing this? If you lose sight of your why, then it becomes cumbersome, and then you look at it and go, why? You have to have your purpose and your why. And so, early on, I think I've said this before, but my wife shared with my kids when they were young, because I used to feel really bad about missing, I missed my son's entire football season when COVID was happening, and I was in Abu Dhabi stuck for 6 weeks straight, and he decided he wanted to play football, and I missed his whole season. So those type of things that I've always kind of kicked myself in the ass about, like, man, I missed that. I'm missing out on my kids growing up. I'm missing out, and going down that rabbit hole. One of the things that gave me continued purpose was my wife said to me early on, when I was bitching about that stuff and saying the way I felt, is, she brought facts into the equation and just said, you know what, I've come to the conclusion, and I've let the kids know that, yes, God puts you on this earth for us, but he puts you on this earth not just for us. He puts you on this earth for a lot of people. And so with a perspective like that, and my wife supporting me, not bitching like your dad's never home, never creating that narrative so that my kids then resent me, they felt purpose. And so the management
of so badass.
The management of the schedule becomes navigable, because
you have a true partner.
I have a partner, and purpose is true, and it's what we're in, and it's what we do. We can bitch about I missed the whole season, or we can go back to our why and our purpose, and then the navigation of the schedule is again navigable. So when you ask, It's not easy. I would be saying, I'd be lying to you if I said that was easy. However, to be in a position to want to strive for greatness and perfection, we'll never get perfection, but we have to strive for it. Greatness, you only catch in a bottle for a split second, so you got to enjoy it if you do. So to strive for all that stuff, you have to understand, I've had to come to the conclusion, my family, people around me that I love, have to understand that this is going to be hard. This is not going to be easy. And I don't mean hard in the way like it's all miserable. That's not what I mean. I just mean it's going to be hard. Like anything worth getting is hard, even if it's on a W. You know, even if you're winning, winning's hard. I say this all the time. That's why I tell my guys all the time, my kids, enjoy it when you're winning. Enjoy it, because it sucks when you don't. And if you don't enjoy the W's, even the W's are hard, man. Like, name a time you've been successful in your life where you didn't have to really go through some hard stuff, even though you caught a W. And then on top of that, when you catch an L, that's the thing is, I think some of it is realizing that and just coming to grips with the fact that this stuff is hard. It's not meant to be easy. This isn't meant to be easy. None of this is meant to be easy. If it's meant to be easy, then why are we chasing it? And so that's the thing is that I think the purpose and the why, understanding all of that stuff, having a good support group around you, especially your partner. I think the biggest choice you'll ever make in your life is who you're going to do life with. First and foremost, your spouse. You know, that decision, how many times have you seen that crappy decision turn into a crappy life?
All the time.
A lot. And I feel very blessed that I have such an amazing wife and kids and team and friends and all that. But at the end of the day, if my wife doesn't have that perspective, we're not together for 25 years. If my wife doesn't have blind faith, like we talked about earlier, on some of these things, because she's looked at me before with eyes crossed going, dude, what are you talking? Where are you trying to take us? You know? And so if she doesn't have that, and then mentor that to my kids, instead of tearing me down about what your dad's never home, I agree, this sucks, what an asshole. It just turns into
poison in the well, man.
It's poison, and then next thing you know, we've got an inferno, and it can't stop, and then we go different directions, and that sucks. That's not cool. I don't that makes life even harder. So, you know, if we're going to do this thing, that choice of who you're going to surround yourself with, whether it's spouse, friends, business, whatever you're doing, those are some big choices you have to make, and you can't compromise because of money. You can't compromise only because of looks. Like, you want to be attracted to your spouse. Yes, you want all those attributes that you think about, but what's the character? Character is a big deal, and I think we, as we continue to go through our lives, the compromisation of character that we see throughout the world sometimes is the fundamental problem that we have, because the driving force most of the time is money, and character is compromised
on a huge level
at all costs. And so, you know, that piece is, I'm not saying that it's not important to create wealth, create stability for yourself and your family. That is important, but it can't be your only driving factor, because even when you get it, you know how many people I've met that are wealthy, not rich, that are wealthy, that just seem miserable. They just seem miserable.
I know a ton.
Right. And so it's like, what's the true balance? I don't know. Purpose and why, I think. That have some blind faith, make some good decisions on who you surround yourself with. Character is probably number one. And, you know, looks, fellas, is probably two.
Or seven.
You know what I mean? So it's like, especially in the pro sports world that I live in, there's some gorgeous people out there, but if they're that and great character, that's a home run. Then, bro, go. Let's go.
Right.
But don't settle just because they're hot. You know what I mean? And so when you ask about schedule, I think it's deeper than just the navigation of, I'm supposed to be up at Mountainside Podcast today at 3. It's deeper than that. The biggest reason I decided I wanted to come up here today, and I get to come up here today, is because I like seeing you be successful. It's cool. I like surrounding myself around people that are driven and want to succeed in life and have purpose. And so, you know,
making me blush over here, dude.
Well, I'm just saying, like, your purpose is, you're passionate about what you do. I love passion. I'm passionate. Sometimes it's my fault in my passion.
It can be mine too.
Yeah. And so, but I love that. I didn't come up here because I think people think I'm interesting and I want to go talk about what I'm going to talk about. To be honest with you, I don't even know what we're going to talk about today. Right. I was like,
well, we don't script anything,
right?
So it's like just kind of off the cuff. But this is something that I've always wanted to ask you that I don't think I ever have, is like, just the management side of it. Because as my kids get older and, we start to have more success with this, like, I'm sure people want a piece of you, at some point, or your time, or, hey, come up and do the podcast. That's why I'm always I'm just really passive with it. I'm not aggressive with it. It's not my schedule. I try to meld as much to my guest schedule. And it's like, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, dude. It's not the end of the world. Like, I want it to be convenient. I want people to come in here and have a good time while they're here. And like, if you're trying to force all that stuff or to bottleneck it, it's going to suck, dude.
Yeah. I had a fighter that used to fight for me. His name was Cortez Coleman. He used to fight in Bellator. Yeah. Cortez used to always have a saying. He'd be like, "Coach, closed mouth don't get fed." And so, it's one of those things. Like, you have to ask. Yeah. It's up to your guests to say yes or no. Sometimes when they say no, it has nothing to do with you. Probably 99% of the time, it has zero to do with you. It probably has to do with navigation of schedule. And
100%. And like, the people that I'm having on now, like, your guys' schedule is so busy.
It's wild.
It's so busy, right? Like, so to carve out, because this turns into, we're only recording for a couple hours, but you got to drive 45 minutes to get here. You have other stuff scheduled, like, I get it, dude. Like, it's a half a day at the end of it, right?
Agree, but I wouldn't do it if I didn't feel that I was going to go surround myself around a 1%er, because I just don't. Then what's the point, And so it's like, let's go be successful together, and let's go. If just talking about life is what viewers want to tune in and hear, and maybe they catch a little gold nugget here and there from each of your guests. Cool. Then, that's the whole point of doing that. And
well, even if they don't, I do. And that's kind of my philosophy.
Right. There you go.
I want to talk to people that are that 1%,
Sure.
Like, I want to talk to people that inspire me, that are like-minded or have done extraordinary things or been through extraordinary things, like, have a good character. Like you just said, like, I view everybody that comes in here at one point as kind of a partner, like, we're going to have a conversation. It's going to be recorded. Like, I want to be on the same level, or at least have them be a good character and stand up for themselves and don't lie to me. That's all I ask.
Agree.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is, I would encourage men and women to go and form themselves a consistent small group of people that they want to do life with and grow with. Now, for example, I have a men's group that I've been involved in. It's a faith base. That's where the base comes. But we spent a lot of life together. The commonality when we first formed this group was that we had a faith base and that we were entrepreneurs. That was the commonality. Nothing else was a commonality there until we got together. And then the way that it's kept its momentum and grown into a brotherhood and a fellowship has been consistency and commitment. And sacrifice, because I meet with some of the most successful men in this state twice a month in the evening at 7, 8 p.m. when in an hour we all should be, I'm getting old, so I usually go to bed around 9:15.
9:30.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, God damn it, it's getting late.
Same. So, but we spend only twice a month, in doing life together and talking about, and a lot of us are the same age. That was a commonality that sort of just happened. It wasn't a prerequisite.
Really?
But so we're doing similar life together. Kids are similar ages. So there's a lot of commonality. That's kind of the web that's weaving us together. But life is how we're navigating that. Now, you don't have to do it as a faith-based thing if that's not your thing. My point is, though, is that it's ludicrous to think you're going to go through life successful by yourself without surrounding yourself around people that you want to strive to take nuggets from and or give to and learn from. Like, at the end of the day, I when we go there and we learn from each other and we talk about the things we talk about, when we talk about life, when we talk about our kids, and I never envisioned that, my daughter, she's out of the house, my son is 16, we have 2 years left with him in the house, then my wife and I are going to be back together, only just her and I, not kids anymore. Like, that whole thing, that's not why I got into this thing. I got into this thing because I was like, okay, that might be a cool thing to do. But as you get into it, you're like, wow, navigating life and finding successful people. Those are some of the most successful people I ever have around me on a consistent basis. And I do that twice a month. Now, look, to carve out that kind of time is tough, man. Like, there are days where I'm like, shit, I've been traveling. A lot of times we meet on a Monday night. I've been traveling. I just got back Sunday afternoon. I didn't sleep Saturday. That's got to be the worst part of
your gig.
It's rough.
Being on a plane, it sucks so bad.
The traveling part is the one piece I didn't have insight on. I had no idea I'd be traveling like I travel. And so, but again, I get to do that. I'm picking to do that. So I can complain about it, or I can get to do it and then just say, okay, I'm going to get to do it and let's go. Now,
I love that outlook too. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but you keep saying, I get to do this. I get to do this. I get to do this. A lot of people say, I have to do this.
I heard years ago, just if you start changing your mindset about that, then the outlook becomes different. And it's true. So when you start saying get to, you feel like you're forcing it because that's not your habit.
Yeah.
Your habit is I have to. But eventually it becomes your habit. Like, man, I get to go do this. I get to do that. I get to do this. And even on the things that you don't really, like, you're not just raring to go do, you're making choices to go. So you might as well get to go do it. And
it all comes down to a choice at the end. You can choose whatever.
And we pick our habits. That's the thing is if you want to go do big, great things, then pick great habits. One of which is mindset. I think it's the biggest one,
Huge.
I have to do this, I have to do that, and I'm a miserable fuck. Who wants to be around me? So, and I'm not saying I don't ever get like that, because I do, and I have to catch myself and go, dude, that's a habit we're chiseling away. We're not doing that anymore. And we get to go do this.
I think everybody has that internal voice that'll talk you out of something or tell you what you're doing wrong.
Of course.
Of course. All the time.
Of course. And I think education is such a valuable tool. How you choose to educate yourself is up to you, but I think in our present day, education is the most easy thing to be sought out if you just seek it out. Between YouTube, podcasts, all the social media, all the things, the resources we have instantly at our fingertips to learn.
We are so fortunate.
Like, on that aspect, we are fortunate. I don't love some things about that, but at the end of the day, on the learning side, we're living in the greatest era of knowledge at your fingertips ever. And so now it's up to us to organize how we learn all that and what we want to learn.
It's a choice, right? Just like everything else.
Fact.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big deal. And, to remain, I think you always have to have that white belt mentality, even if you're a black belt in life or mixed martial arts or jiu-jitsu or whatever. You gotta continue to remind yourself to keep finding it, not plateau.
Well, sometimes taking another person's perspective too. Like
Sure.
that's what I've learned in here, like that's why I want to know about your perspective and how you perceive things sometimes, or like,
Sure.
it's changed my opinion on stuff before, like, or it's helped me sharpen my tool. You don't have to take 100% of what somebody tells you and say, hey, this is it. This is the guideline. But even if you get a little piece, like you said, a nugget or 2 or 3 or whatever, you can apply it and you can mold that into whatever it is that you want to do. So I'm sorry, I want to go back to this men's group because I think that that's super important too. Like having a good community, having good people around you, surrounding yourself with good people, and not only like somebody outside of your family that you can genuinely like talk to or ask a tough question, right? To get some insight before you make a decision on something.
Yeah. And, I would say too, that the thing about that is, I don't remember if I talked about it on here, but in 2018, we had an amazing year as a business, as a team, as a staff, as the whole thing. I've said this before to people, but I don't know if I ever said it here, but in 2018, I had one of the toughest times I've ever had mentally in navigating some of my stuff that I went through as a kid, carrying that into my 40s. Eventually one day looking in the mirror and being like, dude, you're a black belt at suppressing a lot of stuff, and all that stuff for some reason was just throwing up all over me all at the same time in 2018. And I was like, man, I got to deal with this. Well, I think the only way you deal with those type of things, which is, especially at that time period, in my profession, my personality, is I'm going to have to be vulnerable. Well, vulnerability, it can be perceived as being a pussy, or vulnerability can get you taken advantage of. I know where I grew up, to show any vulnerability was going to be a problem, because if you show a chink in your armor, that was a weakness, and a weakness isn't going anywhere. So being vulnerable was the ticket to success where I grew up.
Even with a poker face, right? Like,
Fact.
Yeah.
So in 2018, I was like, you know what? I need to deal with my stuff. And in order to do that, you got to go do that with someone you trust. And I was like, I don't really want to go down the shrink thing. Maybe I turn to my church, see if there's something there. But my men's group fortunately was intact, and it was a place where I gained trust over the years of guys. And we're not in there to go tell each other stories. We're in there to just be there for each other and share life together and faith together. And so that was one of the places that I was able to be vulnerable and not be judged. I was able to be vulnerable, not taken advantage of. And I was able to actually, instead of find weakness, find strength. And so now, does that have to develop over time? Would I go do that with one of those guys if they were strangers to me? No, I would have to develop this through time. But if you do that now, when you hit hardship in 2018, like I did, and I'm like, okay, I didn't really pick today for the day to deal with all my bullshit, but I guess today's the day that I start. Then I've got a solid foundation in place to go and regurgitate what the hell's going on without any of those judgments or weaknesses, showing to make me feel like I can't progress. And so that was a massive way. When I got through 2018, I was like, you know what, man, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I found strength in telling some of my real deep, dark things that I just felt and didn't. And then the other thing you find is some community of people going, yeah, I feel that way too. And I think sometimes when we're dealing with stuff, we sometimes isolate it and think it's just us, which is very normal and human to do. But more times than not, it's like when you're in a classroom when you were a kid, you don't want to ask a question, but 15 kids had the same question. You just didn't want to be the dummy asking the question, because if it wasn't, you were going to be vulnerable, right?
Right.
And so, but you stunted your growth and your learning by doing so, because you were worried your ego got in the way. And so, and you learn that as you get older in life, like, I don't give a shit what you think, I'm here to grow. So having a stability and foundation like that has been massive. Now, it doesn't have to be that deep and hard, but man, life is hard. It just is. Like, it's fun. There's tons of joy and happiness. We have a blast together. You know, we go on trips together. We spend nights together. We go do things together. These four are going to go do the heli skiing.
You guys aren't just getting in a room and crying on each other's shoulders.
Nah, man. I mean, it's, you know, and everyone, sometimes, you know, like going into the next group, you know, Bobby was having a tough time leading into this. The mic's not probably going to be for me tonight. Cool. Sure. But that's part of learning too, is listening and just, you know, letting people vent. And sometimes some of the things you need to say, as amazing as my wife is, there's some things I just don't want to offload on her.
It's not fair, right?
And my wife's looking for stability. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, women, you know, they want stability. They want to know we're good. And we're going to be good, but sometimes I need a male's perspective, or a female. You're female and you're listening, and you need a female's perspective, not the male's perspective. The point is that stuff has allowed me to build traction and allowed me to grow strength, even if it wasn't my mic night.
Sometimes listening to yourself speak out loud, like one thing I've noticed on here is I figured some stuff out just listening to myself. Like, God, I never really thought about it that way. But now that I have to explain it to somebody else, it gives you a different perspective on
yes
a problem you might be dealing with, or
sure.
an issue or something like that. And man, listening to people is so important. Like, I think so many people get in a conversation, and I've been guilty of it, but this has honestly given me a chance to really sharpen those tools, because to be good at this, really, you just have to listen. And it's hard, you know, because you're thinking about the next thing that you want to say or bring up, or like, you know, this is our 4th episode, so I'm totally comfortable with you being in here. But the first time you were in here, I was nervous, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure I interrupted you 9 times, probably.
I don't remember, but I had fun, so I came back. This is the 4th time, right? So, and I was inspired by your story, and the genesis of what you were doing was cool, you know. And I met you in an archery shop, so I was like, man, those are the people of my feather. So I'm like, okay, cool. So,
oh yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So, you know, but so I just encourage people to do that. I think sometimes people don't do that because one of their questions is, where do you start? I don't know, start in your friend group, start in your church, start in your community, start somewhere. And
right.
Sometimes I've been a part of groups before that didn't last. Doesn't mean you stop. You know, that's the other thing, is don't stop. Find purpose in what you're doing, and continue the search. You know, that's the thing is, and the other cool thing is when you surround yourself around people that are going to always agree with you, it's not
Those
that they
are the best.
Yeah,
the
it's
ones
not that
they don't agree with you.
And it's not like you argue all night. That's not the point.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, perspective is different. It challenges you to grow. I'd never say in a conversation that you're going to have my perspective. How could you? You don't walk in my shoes. You're not of my experience. Same to you. I don't walk in yours. I don't have your. So my perspective is not I'm not trying to convince you to have my perspective. I'm trying to give you my knowledge with experience based on why I've gotten to this point. Now it's up to you to decide, is that a nugget? Are those nuggets that you're going to take to put in your steps, your ladder to keep walking up the mountain and growing? Because if you're out of rungs and you have no resources of how to do it or where to do it or grow or build, then we're on a plateau. And that's where, man, and life sucks, and screw that.
It's boring, right?
Screw that.
The climb is the climb or the descent,
Right.
can be exciting.
And that's the thing that I've said, like I've told you this before in a podcast. Every year, I learned this from, I read a John Gordon book years ago. I can't remember if it was Energy Bus. I can't remember which book it was. I have to go look. But anyway, he said in the book that instead of making a New Year's resolution, pick one word that you're going to live by, find growth and excitement and strength and all these things from, and continue to go back to that word through your entire year. Because New Year's resolutions, as we know, rarely succeed. They typically fail. And so, at least statistically, the statistics are very high that they're failing or not going to be seen through. So years and years ago, when I read that, I was like, man, I want to do that with my team. I want to encourage them to pick a word. And every year we have pylons in the gym that obviously support the building we're in that are covered by mats. So if we run into them, we don't split our heads open or hurt ourselves. And every year we write with a permanent Sharpie our word of the year. And so
badass.
And what's crazy about that, Bobby, is at the end of the year, most of those words from wear and tear of people hitting those mats are rubbed off. It's such a crazy analogy of life. It's like
just from the elements, probably sweat flying around.
Sweat, your body on it. I'm wrestling you on the pole. You ran into the thing, and then by the end of the year,
do you guys ride it on the metal or is it on the pad?
No, it's on the pad that's surrounding the metal.
Yeah, that's bad.
So that if we run into that pole, because you can't do anything about the support poles, so we have to pad them with padding so that if we run it, but the exterior shell that holds the padding, we take permanent marker on and we write our word. And so, but by the end of almost every year, that word is rubbed off.
Really?
Isn't that wild? And so crazy. I'm always my mind is like, man, hopefully some of those words rubbed off into your clothes, into your DNA, and you were like, hell yeah. And by just osmosis, you're carrying some of that stuff, right?
Sure.
But the reality is that like everything in life, things start to wear out and you got to continue to grow. And so, like you just said, the reason I brought this up is because you mentioned the rise. And so last year as a team, as a business, as a person, we had incredible things happen to us last year. We had adversity, we had success, I had a life-threatening cancer, all kinds of stuff happened last year.
There was some heartbreak.
I
was heartbroken.
Me too.
For you guys, man.
Me too. And so when I was thinking about my word for 2024, I was thinking about it like, okay, what the heck's my word going to be this year? And when I was thinking about it, where I originally got my direction for my word was my faith. But it was a lot to do with circumstances in our year too, in success, but also in failure. And we finished December miserably. We lost a bunch of high-level fights at the very end of the year that we could have easily won and it'd be completely feel different, but we didn't. And so when I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, in my Christianity faith base, yes, Christmas is cool. We celebrate Jesus' birth. That's cool. But the biggest event in Christianity is Easter. It's the resurrection of Christ. That's the biggest event that we celebrate. If you're not Christian, it doesn't matter to me. The point is that this is my point, is one of the reasons I believe that that's such a huge deal is because the resurrection is a big deal. To watch people fail and rise is such a big deal. And so that's why we cheer for the underdog. That's why when there's a dynasty and a team just cannot lose and they keep winning, we cheer for them to lose. We want to see the next person rise, the next team rise. And so
the Cinderella story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it all stems back to that word rise. And so I was like, you know what? Based on just our year, we had a lot of successes. We exceeded our expectations at the beginning of 2023, even though We finished December on a negative L, if you want to call it. I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? The coolest part about watching all of those guys that won or lost in 2023, the coolest part was to watch them rise to the level that they got to get the opportunity to compete to where they were, regardless of result. And to look at myself internally and go, man, you had to rise from quote unquote the ashes in your health, your personal health. From having cancer and all these things, and figure out how to do this and feel like yourself again. And so, in 2024, I picked that word, rise, because I'm excited, despite our finish, I'm excited to watch our rise again. And that's the silver lining I have to find as a leader, as a person, is the rise. And so that right there.
That's the perfect word, man. It's incredible.
Excuse me. And so that right there is, for me, how I'm going to draw optimism, strength, a pillar, like all these things as I go through the year. And so, if you're sitting there struggling, it's January, if you're sitting there struggling, go, man, my buddy's got this New Year's resolution, my wife has this, my dad has that. I just encourage you, pick a word, man. Go learn from what John Gordon taught me, or what I read, and then from there, go do it and make it a consistent habit. You make consistent habits, then we grow, and then you have purpose and you have why.
And that's not that big of a thing to ask, right? Like
No.
if you look at it once a morning, once a week, once a month, but pick a time to revisit that, right?
Agree.
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
So what was cool about that is every year I give my team a gift. And I try to think about our gifts a lot, and I try, like, for example, I'll give you the quick rundown of what I've given them recently over the years. I gave them a coin, like a military coin, which you have on your table.
Thank you, man. I love that too.
I've given them that. I've given them, after speaking to my military friends, I said, hey, man, if I created some dog tags for our guys, is that offensive to you guys? And I said, I'm just trying to create brotherhood, and, not all of us get to go to the fight together. And so when they take that off as they're entering into the cage and give it to their corner people, coaches, that we're still all in this thing together type thing, So my military buddies were like, that's a badass idea. Do that. And so no offense to you guys if that's what you do, but I tried to check some sources before I do that. But a lot of what I've taken has been from the military, because I think that is some of the fabric that we're sewn in. I mean, that's where in the United States, that's a huge backbone of who we are. And so, and the respect there is so given. And so, to show honor to those people, like some of their traditions.
And it's a warrior mindset.
It is.
Right? Yeah.
So, I've given a coin, I've given them dog tags, I've given them a compass, like a badass
Hell yeah.
brass compass to find true north. Like that was the whole point that year. I gave them journals last year to some of your biggest tools in life is internally, but sometimes you need to organize it and see what. So when you go back, like when I went back and read in 2023 the journals I filled up, when I went back, I was like, man, there's some nuggets in there that I just put in there that I didn't really intentionally do that, but I'm able to draw. I don't need to go listen to a podcast only. I can draw from myself. I can draw from I can learn from my stuff. I can learn from others' things. I can be like, man, that was a great point. That was a good thing. Let's reread that. And so I love that verse. I love that quote, like those kind of things. And so, that thing there gives you contents and resource. And so I was like, man, what a great tool for these guys. So I gave them a journal. This year, what I did is I was struggling. I was like, man, I don't know what to give these guys. And so last year I gave them a journal. They have all this stuff, and my whole life, I don't know about you, but my whole life I've loved the ammo canisters, the boxes.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. The metal ones?
Yeah, the metal
since
ones.
I was a kid.
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
You can bury it. I mean,
you
they're
can do
fucking
anything.
badass,
Yeah, they're
dude.
so badass.
You can put a lock on them. They become a safe. You can put
Exactly.
live rounds in them. You can put explosive shit in them. Like,
Exactly.
Dude, there's so much you can do with them.
So much cool things, and they're built like just hardy.
Yeah.
And they clang when they open, and
they'll fucking chop your finger off
exactly,
if you're not careful.
Exactly.
Like, you got to know what the fuck
you're doing. Well, my dad, when I was a kid, he had this red one, which I don't know where he got it from, but it was sort of red because a lot of the red had been rubbed off. So you could see the actual metal underneath the red, but you could sort of see the writing like ammo, and it was cool. And I remember when I was leaving for college, I asked my dad, I said, hey, can I have that? And he was like, why do you want that piece of shit? And I said, I just want it. I keep my knives in there. That's what I keep in there.
Hell yeah.
But I just wanted it. Like, I thought it was cool. So anyway, I was like, you know what? These guys have a lot of ammo that I've given them. They need an ammo box.
Yeah.
For their compass, for their dog tags, for their journals, for their coin, like all these things, right? So I went on Amazon and I found 50 ammo boxes, metal ones. I made sure they were metal, not plastic. And I bought all those. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, not only do I want to have them take the old contents that they have in here, but I want to give them some new ammo. So what I was thinking about is a friend of mine who's a childhood friend who I've known since he was day one born. And he's a great friend of mine still, obviously, but he's in the finance world, huge MMA fan. Dustin, he's one of the guys I introduced Dustin to when he first came here. Anyway, his name's Jimmy Dreiling. He is a great friend of mine. He, one time, out of our 32 losses last year, he said to me in a text, he said, hey man, I love you, bro. Just another knowledge knot. And I was in the middle of feeling sorry for myself and my fighter and our situation and a loss. And I said, hey bro, great to hear from you. What the hell is a knowledge knot? And so he said, I had a, I don't know if it was a captain or a general. He was in the Navy. He said, I had one of my superiors, let's just call it, explained to me when I was young in the military that what I was doing was a knowledge knot. And he described it as if you had a rope, every time you learned something, you tied a knot, you could stand on that knot and you can actually start to climb the rope as you have stability from learning. And so I was like, oh man, thank you for sharing that with me. And that was the middle of 2023 when he sent that to me. And it just stuck with me the whole year. Like, man, we got knowledge knots. And again, another reason why it's important to surround yourself with great people, Yeah. I hear from 5 people when we lose. He's one of them. You know what I mean? That's when we win, my phone is like, brrr. But have you ever seen the meme where they say, lost, and there's one guy in the stands.
Yes,
and then,
I think
congratulations, it's filled.
Your wife posted it.
Oh, did she? Yeah. Okay. So
I loved it.
So anyway, getting back to why I'm talking about knowledge knots is, I was like, okay, I gave them a journal last year. That is a long form way of learning lessons and creating dialogue and finding pathways for success and failure. Let's give them a shorthand way. So what I did is I found a black chain that has links on it, and I bought an entire spool of this chain because I knew I'd need enough for the entire team, and I counted 52 links. So there's obviously 52 weeks in a year. So every week, and I bought those jewelry tabs that would come on jewelry that shows you the price.
Okay.
You know how they tag those? They're like little tags.
Oh, okay.
And then
like the ones you can ride on?
Yeah, that you ride on.
Okay.
So they're called jewelry tags. So I bought some jewelry tags, and if you can't find those in Colorado right now at Walmart's, because I bought them all. But because I went to multiple Walmarts and I had to order some from Amazon. So anyway, because I needed 52 per guy.
Yeah.
And so I cut this chain from the same spool, because I wanted to do it from the same spool. And I cut 52 links a guy, and I put the links with the jewelry tabs in their box, in their ammo box. And I told them all to bring their things that they've been given. And when we give awards because we have our Legend and Legacy party every year, we just had it last weekend. When we give awards, we give those out in dog tags. So the dog tags they have, they can put their awards on their dog tags, And, if you had the knockout of the year, fighter of the year, humanitarian of the year, whatever award we're giving you, employee of the year, you can put on your necklace. And so, anyway, the whole point is the knowledge knot you learned this week, put on that tab, hook it to your chain, hook it to the one piece of chain, and then create 52 knowledge knots that you've learned through the year. And so, that those kind of things, I have no idea where that came to me, by the way. But
it's awesome because it's a reason, like, whatever you put on that tag, you want it to be meaningful.
Agree.
So it's a reason to learn something.
I totally
honestly.
Agree. And like, for example, you put, let's say it was last year and I put cancer, and on the backside I put 123. It would be a knowledge knot that cancer was a lesson, a knowledge knot for me in January of 23. And then, if you create 52 knots, think about how high you're climbing in that year alone. Just one a week. And so you don't have to have a chain. You don't have to have the jewelry tabs.
Well, you can't get the jewelry tags now.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to go to Amazon probably. But you can't buy them at Walmart, I could tell you that. But anyway, my point is if you did that once a week in your journal and you just wrote down your one knowledge knot, and then you reference that back in December of this year, and you went and found 52 reasons why you get to do what you get to do, think about the progress you make. If you'll do it.
That's badass.
Like, if you'll do it.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to discipline, man. If you're not checking out the Mountainside Podcast on YouTube, you absolutely should be. If you like the content that we create here and you want to help support the podcast, please take a moment, subscribe to us on YouTube, and hit that notification bell. You have to be disciplined. If you're going to do something like that for yourself, you genuinely have to be disciplined, because especially for somebody like me, my hardest thing is actually being disciplined for myself. I can be disciplined for other people much easier than you can be for yourself, but that's kind of part of taking care of yourself, is taking that time.
It is. It's I always
take the blinders off too.
Yeah,
you can get caught up in just
sure.
This is what I do. This is what I do.
Sure.
I wake up, I eat, I go to the gym, and it's good to have routine, I think.
Sure.
But I think also part of that routine is build that time in for reflection or journaling or whatever. Right?
For sure. And the thing about it is, when you get on an airplane and then they explain all the safety stuff to you, the first thing they say to you about the oxygen mask is put it on yourself first, and then help others. And I always reference that back when I'm talking to people about stuff like this, because it didn't say take care of Bobby first and then administer oxygen to yourself second, Mark. It said put the oxygen on yourself first so you can help others, which goes back to what you're saying is, yeah, you have to take care. How are you going to go take care of someone else if you can't take care of yourself? Like, it's not possible. Yeah. So create it as a priority, just like you would if you were on a plane and we needed oxygen. I can't really help you, assist you, if I don't have the oxygen. I need to get that on first and then assist with others, And so that I always reference that back, but I think it's such a good analogy to a lot of things. And it's something that I would just encourage people to think about and challenge themselves about. And there are days
I'm definitely going to do it. This is why I love fucking talking to you, man. Like, every time you come in here, I get inspired, man.
I love it.
Like, so I love having you here.
Yeah,
for
thank
that very
you.
Reason.
Yeah, thank you.
And I know other people do too. It's not just you and me in the room, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
It's very cool, actually. But yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
But I mean, if this impacted one person, it's already impacted me. Like, it's a great point. Like, I should journal more, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, to reflect. I do it in certain ways, I guess, but.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's a lot of intimacy, I think, that we've lost because of the digital world we live in a handwritten note. You want to get attention? Go say thank you to someone on a piece of paper and give it to them.
No shit. Yeah, that's so true.
Or how about
Send them a letter.
Send them a letter. Or how about better, why don't you go say thank you to yourself in your handwriting in a journal, and look, guys, it doesn't have to be 2 hours. Literally, I'll give you the format that I use. What are my top 3 things I'm doing today? What I need to accomplish? What's the one Bible verse that I'm going to live by today? What's the quote I love? And what are my top 3 prayers for the day? That's all I do. And so I don't care how you organize it, but that takes me about 5 minutes. And so
I love the 5-minute journal.
It's simple.
Philosophy, yeah.
It's simple. And so whatever format you come up with, still mine, go research one online, do your own, just write down today's this and that and whatever. But man, if you'll start creating a dialogue for yourself, like that's your thank you letter to yourself. I mean, ultimately, if you think about it, we have so many thoughts that just on the daily that are going through our head. Without organization of some of that stuff, we're lost. How are we going to navigate all this stuff? I don't know. We need some direction.
Yeah, it's also it kind of keeps you focused on goals, right? So whether it's creatively, personally, athletically, whatever, right?
Sure.
Like, I think that helps put it in perspective. That's what's helped me, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you think about the format of Weight Watchers, okay?
I don't know it, honestly.
Okay, the format.
Probably should know this.
The format.
It's a point system,
it's
right?
It's so genius. Like, think about this. The format of Weight Watchers is still around and works because you say your goal. Let's say your goal is to lose 10 pounds. You say your goal. They go, okay, well, you get an allotted amount of points for the day equaling X. If you do activity, you get extra points. If you're going to go, who's monitoring you technically? Nobody. You're doing it yourself. But you feel this responsibility of, if I'm going to write it down, I probably don't want to go eat that. Or if I'm going to eat that, I probably have to go work out in order to offset because I'm going to run out of points. And if I run out of points and I still want to achieve my goal, I'm not going to achieve my goal. And what's the whole point of paying for the thing if you're not going to achieve your goal? And so, I mean, the format of what they did, it created is genius. Like they say, okay, you want to lose 10 pounds, you get X points a day. If you do activity, each activity equals X amount of points. You don't come up with the point system. They did all the hard work for you. And then at the end of the day, you come and you go, okay, this is what I ate. I'm starting to run out of points. I should probably go work out because I wanted to eat that cookie after dinner. No one's saying you can't eat the cookie. They're just saying, if you want the cookie, you got to go do work to eat the cookie. And so, or you're going to run out of points and then you don't get to eat dinner if you want to achieve your goal.
Sure.
Or you could shortcut the system and be like, and just pay for it. What's the point, though? Like, why are you going to waste your money? And so then just don't do it and eat whatever you want. Don't have a goal. And so, I mean, if you think about that,
you're reaping your own rewards.
You are being responsible to yourself, and you're having to do it by a written piece or digitally now.
I think it's so important. You and I have talked about this before, like actually putting pen to paper.
It's
like I hate typing on my phone.
Same.
Like I have to all the time with emails.
Same.
All this other stuff. And I do use a journal app in here that's pretty badass, but I enjoy, like, if it's important, I enjoy putting pen to paper. And I remember it more.
Same.
And there's something about it's an imprinting thing.
Could be our era too. Like we grew up having to write everything down. We didn't have the phones and the tablets and the computers like we do now. But I don't know. I think there's some intimacy there, and there's some learning responses there that you get from actually writing it down.
Yeah.
Some collection of data. I don't know. And maybe the new era, they're just so used to doing it on a tablet or a phone that they.
Well, I mean, you can just speak to it now.
Or you can speak to it.
Hey,
yeah. I always forget that that's an option.
Make this note, make that note, like.
I always forget that's an option.
And now we're even going into this AI world, which is totally frightening to me. But guess what? We're using it.
Yeah.
They're using it to transcribe the podcast so people can read it or whatever, like.
Sure.
Which is cool. I mean, if somebody can't listen to it, now they can actually read it because it's transcribed.
Sure.
So I guess there's, some benefits to it, but.
Well, I think just the accountability to yourself is my whole point.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Is if you can be accountable to yourself, then you can grow past that and actually you have your oxygen mask on first. Now you can go help others.
For sure.
I mean, that's where joy really comes from. Joy is not from you just, doing things. Joy comes from giving. Think about the biggest joy. Have you ever done something during the Christmas time where you went and gave to underprivileged people?
Yes.
Yeah. How much joy did you feel from that?
It's awesome.
It's dope. You're like, that was dope. That had zero to do with you. You gave your time. Yeah, I get it. But you went and gave to others. So it's like, man, if we can do that first and foremost for ourselves first.
I think it's unconditional love, right? Because you're just loving something without expecting anything in return.
Yeah, again, blind faith.
Right? Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what it is. Some of it.
Going back to the journal of the 52 weeks or having this sort of thing, like one thing that I've kind of adopted before I have a guest come in is I have certain reasons. It's almost kind of like a mantra. Like I do it with archery. And I kind of started this when I started taking up shooting back tension, and I went and got some real coaching from some real coaches. And it's fucking incredible. It's totally changed my archery game, hands down. I'm so much more accurate and so much more confident, and I was like, this is something that I can apply to other spaces. So I've kind of created a mantra for little things that I do in my life that are important to me. So one of the things that really honestly helped me with some of my weight loss was truly being disciplined, but having this mantra before I actually ate, like just before you sit down and just start eating, like reflect on what you're doing or what your purpose is, right? I think that was huge. I started doing it before I started podcasting with like things, because I go back and listen to each one of these, and I am my own worst critic, man. I pick myself apart. I'm like, you shouldn't have spoke here. You should stop saying, you should stop saying filler words, like all those sort of things to make myself better. So I think having a little bit of reflection before you go into something that's totally important for you is huge.
Yeah, and that's where I think, again, going back to some type of tool to reflect. Because if you only, at least for me, if I only do it upstairs, it's hard to organize all of it because there's a lot of stuff going on.
100%.
When you're in deep thought and then your phone buzzes?
Like it just did.
Or like mine has been doing while we've been on this podcast. It's, you have this, for whatever reason, we have this built in to be like, I should check that.
People get anxiety over that.
I know.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. And so it's like, you have to be able to deposit some of this somewhere, so let's take a little time out, and we're literally talking 5 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
And, only thing I'm advocating is personal growth. The journals, whatever, that if you want to go get
gratitude, right?
Yeah. And if you want to go grab a piece of chain and cut 52 things, cool, do it. But like it's just that. And the challenge to do it consistently. That's the hardest part, is consistently doing it. Because we'll do it for a month, and then you'll look back and you'll be like, damn, I filled 4 of those links on a 52 link chain, and it looks empty. I'd rather have the triumph of that 52 weeks, looking at all those white tabs and then going on the reflection tour and being like, damn, I forgot about that. Because what's funny is I'll bring this all the way back to my men's group. So it was my turn to host this week at my house. And so whoever's hosting is leading with an idea. Well, my idea for my men's group this week was, again, stemmed off what I did with my team and myself personally. And I said, hey, guys, I told them the story about my buddy sending me the knowledge knot text. And I said, hey, what are your top 3 knowledge knots for 2023? Did your faith impact it? Or are there quotes or are there verses that you referred to in dealing with some of these good and bad things? And so that was the gist of, it was a little more in depth than that, but that was the gist of what we did. And what's funny is there was 7 of us there. There's 8 of us total, but there was 7 of us there. And half the group said, I knew a lot of stuff happened this year. I just couldn't remember what the top 3 for 2023 was. I had to really sit down and reflect.
Dude, when you're a dad and you have a business and I mean, there's only so much bandwidth.
Right. Yeah. And I was in the same boat because I was like, how I figured that out is I went to my journals and I read some of my journals. Now, cancer was easy for me to say because that was ever present daily. Mm-hmm. But the other 2, I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff that happened this year. How do I pick just 3? And so I went to my journals, and it was a tool that lended me reflection. And I was like, oh, wow. And then I saw a bunch of stuff in there that I hadn't read through the year. And I ended up spending all this time like reading the stuff I wrote down and what were my prayers in March and what was that cool quote I liked. And man, I got those tasks done. Dang, I didn't get that done. It took me 3 days. I put the same thing in tasks and it took me 3 days to get it done. What were my top 3 tasks? I'm like, dude, you didn't get that done for 3 days, So anyway, The point is it was cool. It's a cool tool. But it's also when I was given an assignment, I had a reference to be able to go and be like, oh, that, and then it gave me reflection time, and then it also gave me a lot of confidence too. That was the other thing. I finished reading those, and I was like, man, I had a pretty damn good year. That was a good year, and I prayed for a lot of people, and I did a lot of good tasks, and I really liked that quote, and you know what I mean. And so that thing was dope. It was dope.
That's awesome. It's incredible. I guess where I want to take this next is mindset, because you've changed my mindset in some stuff, a lot of stuff actually. And one of those is one of the things that you have your fighters do is, or you did at one point, was have them read a book a month or something like that, or take in some sort of book a month, right? And I think I've had ADHD. I've never taken medication for it or anything, but I was always a problem in school. I was really good at sports. That was like kind of my strong suit in school. That was about it. Like PE class was the only time that I was thriving,
sound like
right?
My
Because
son
I was
right now.
crushing people.
I'm like, bro, how was school?
Yeah.
PE was great. I was like, dude.
Yeah. So I guess I have a hard time actually sitting down and reading, right? Like I would love to be that guy in the library with the pipe and the fucking robe and slippers and just sit there and read a book. But my mind goes too many places. I cannot concentrate. So I was like, okay, this is something that I got to break. So I do have one physical book that I try to read throughout a month, wherever I have time, if I'm on a plane or whatever. Doesn't normally get done. But audiobooks, I've been crushing.
Love it.
Fucking love Audible. And I just decided, going into, I think it was last year, I was like, I love learning. I genuinely love doing this, right? And I can either fill my time with listening to nonsense on other podcasts, and I'm going to regurgitate that in here, or I can try to sharpen my skills and learn. So I started this thing, and I was always a person that had to fall asleep in complete darkness, not a quiet environment, because I slept in tour buses for years, right? And I love that. I mean, you're going down the road in a coffin, essentially. And the road's vibrating you to sleep. You're sleeping while the bus driver's driving, and then as soon as that bus stops, no more sleep. So that was hard. But, after the dust had settled from all that, in my old ways, it was like, it's got to be quiet, it's got to be dark, it's got to be cold, It's sort of that mentality. But I started listening to audiobooks, and I'll just set a timer. It's 30 minutes or whatever. And sometimes I'm hitting that timer 2 or 3 times before I go to bed because I'm so into the book or whatever. But man, just the amount of knowledge and the mindset that it's given me in different perspective, and I try to pick stuff, like going back to your compass thing, for example. Have you read the book Longitude?
No.
Oh my God.
Good one.
It's fucking awesome. It was one of the ones that I knocked down this year. Can you look this up, Derek, just so we can give the author a shout out?
Yeah, I'll read it for sure.
It's also the guy, have you read Mastery?
No.
Okay. That's another really good book. But longitude is kind of about, it goes back to the beginning of when time was kind of created. And I'm not talking about like time and years and spans and lifetimes, right? But like when they invented the watch. And the reason why the church bell rings is because it was the only accurate watch. So these watches that people were carrying around were not accurate enough. So they had to listen to that bell and then reset their watch so they had the right time, so they weren't late showing up to work or wherever they needed to be, right? So it's kind of the structure of time. But also with that, yeah, that's it. It's just a different cover.
Which one?
It's David Sobo.
Yeah, him.
Sobel?
There you go.
Yeah. Awesome book.
Did you listen to that on Audible?
I did.
Yeah.
I listened to it
That's
going
a
to
great
bed.
tool.
And so what it comes down to is it starts going into navigation and latitude and longitude and how that was created and why there's maritime and how big of a feat that was. Because imagine setting sail, you know, across the Pacific and you missed your mark. If you were off by a half a degree,
It's a problem.
you missed it by miles by the time you got to the other side, right?
Yeah.
So not only is it kind of, it's a really great way to put just life in perspective. Like if you're off a couple degrees and here's your goal, this is how, and you think it's going to take this much time. This is how far you're going to be off if you don't re-navigate that. Is kind of how I took it.
Yeah, it's cool.
But it goes into the construction of watches, which I've always been fascinated with. Like, how do these things fucking work? I mean, there's so many digital ones, and I'm guilty of wearing one right now. But like before that, like an actual watch, like the gears and the motion, and like it's an incredible book.
Yeah, I'll definitely read it. I love getting book recommendations. If your listeners have book recommendations, please send them to me on Instagram. Yeah. And if you want some, I have a ton. I
would love it to be reciprocated because I've taken some of yours. Yeah.
Good. I actually was thinking about this is I looked at my Audible account and I had 119 titles, I think it said. And that was just through I think it was the last 2 years. So, and
that's awesome.
To get that kind of, and that's through Audible, not just from physical reading, but to get that kind of knowledge into your head is, I don't know. I love to hear stories, but I also like mostly just referring that back to life and how can I use that? How can I change? How can I grow? And you know, when you see successful people do things, winning and losing, those are the people I want to learn from. Not just winning. Like I want to, because I always say,
you got to learn how to lose too, right?
Well, one of the things I have to say to myself, and I have to say to the people around me, because our world is about winning and losing. At the end of the day, the result is what some of what we do is about. It's not what it's about though, but it is like from the surface level is it a win or is it a loss? And so one of the things that I always constantly talk about to myself and to the people I get to lead is you don't have to fail personally to learn. If you want to learn some real valuable stuff, go find some successful people and learn from their wins, their successes, and their failures. You don't have to do it yourself, though. Like it doesn't have to always be yourself doing it. You don't have to go run yourself into the wall every single time to learn that stuff. You can just watch and be like, I'm observant of that person's really successful, but I guarantee there was a bunch of knowledge knots that helped them climb the rope to get there. And some of those were losses and a lot of them were wins. If you're successful, you won a lot, but you lost too. Let's be real. I went over our record as a team at our Legend Legacy party this past Saturday. In 2008, we started fighting. I didn't start keeping record though until 2010. So I only have a record from 2010, but from 2010 to 2023, we have a 70% winning percentage as an average.
That's incredible.
And so, and those are all, you know, what I showed in 2010, we were 8-1. We had 9 whole fights. Isn't that hilarious?
That is crazy.
In 2023, we had 82. And we kind of hover around the 80 to 100 mark, and we've done that for a while now. But my point in saying all that is there's a lot of lessons to learn there from each other as coaches, fighters, that you don't have to personally go learn. And we're almost to 1,000 fights in our history of Factory X. Wow. And so if you go, man, there's so many lessons there in wins. Like we 70% of those times we've won. And so
that's incredible.
Yeah.
At the highest levels.
At the highest levels. And so, yeah, you have a tough month in December. It was a tough month because we had amazing opportunity. Think about it. We had a main event. We had a co-main event with a world title. We had another main event. We had a main event in the prelims. Like, we had such cool opportunity. What do I wish we won those? Absolutely, yes.
Even from just 4 years ago.
I know.
Like, that's when I religiously started following what you were doing on a weekly basis. Right. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, the continuation of growth is massive.
It's insane.
And the cool part is that we exceeded expectation in 2023. We are not miles away anymore. We're literally millimeters away from accomplishing these great things that we have been after for years, from 2008 to 2010 to, you know, now. And so it's like, man, the 30% of the time that we're losing, the 32 fights that we lost in 2023, there's some valuable gold in those things. And so whether it's your self-reflection, whether you learned from somebody and you wrote that down as your not this week, maybe it was your thing that you did, your kid's thing, your wife, whatever. It's like, man, that stuff is you don't have to go do it. You don't have to go run your head into the wall personally every time to learn that stuff. And so, you know, that's one of the lessons that I continue to try to say to myself and teach others is, man, we can learn a lot from just successful people.
Mentorship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're losing too. It's not like they're all W's. Right. It's just not life. And so,
yeah, I've definitely picked mine out. You being one of them included. Like, where do Marc Montoya's mentors come from? I mean, are they like Greek gods or what?
You're saying my mentor?
Yes.
Yeah. That's hilarious. You know, I think it's anybody.
Yeah.
Got to be honest with you. I don't think it's I think my men's group is one. I think my ultimate teacher is God. I think my fighters have taught me some valuable stuff. I think my friends have taught me some valuable things. I've seen successful people I respect gone and just not even knowingly I've learned from some of the things they've done. Of course, I love athletes and sports and coaches, and I've watched. Like, what was it crazy to you that Pete Carroll retired after 14 years with the Seahawks and he's 72 years old? I triple checked that on the internet. He's 72.
He did retire?
Yeah.
Officially?
Yeah.
God,
well, he retired from
think
coaching.
it every time that they scored a touchdown or whatever, dude, because he's jumping around like he's
running.
14.
That's what I'm saying, running down the sideline. Yeah. That's always my vision of Pete Carroll. Like, he's running down the sideline. He's fit. He's in good shape.
Positive
dude. Obviously, he's a coach, so I bet you he's busted some chops for sure.
Oh, but got to be at that level. Come on, bro.
But the point is like, I was blown away that Pete Carroll was 72. That blew my mind. I was like, holy shit, Pete Carroll's 72?
No, I was shocked when I found that out too. But I'd kind of known it the last couple of years because anytime that he would start jumping or running down the sideline, that's what the announcers were always saying. Like, can you believe this guy's age and how fit he is? And like, he's keeping up with wide receivers going down the sidelines.
Like, I love it, man. I'm like, that's what I'm saying is like that kind of stuff where I look at people like him and that I just, from seeing that this week, I was actually at strength conditioning. I like football. I loved football when I was a kid. I just don't watch a ton of football anymore, college or pro.
It takes so much time.
Yeah, I just don't have the time. I'm usually traveling as part of the big deal. Is Sundays is my travel day coming home. Anyway, I was at strength conditioning on, believe it was Wednesday, and they had the TVs on in the strength conditioning at Landau Performance, and I saw Pete Carroll's face, and I glanced up, and I saw the banner, and it said, Pete Carroll steps down after 14 years of being the head coach at the Seattle Seahawks. He's moving on to an advisory role, which means he's probably just shaking hands.
He'll still be
and
running down
babies.
the sidelines.
Yeah, he's probably just shaking hands and kissing babies.
Hell yeah.
I mean, that's the nice way of getting rid of a 72-year-old coach, of being like, okay, we'll still pay you some money. Thank you for being the face of who we are. You're stepping down. Okay, cool. But the point is, I was like, that dude's 72 and he's still coaching. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that is inspiration. That is that little thing. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm a coach
At the highest level.
But you know, whether it's in business or whatever, and you see these guys, and I went back and I triple checked that he was really 72, that I didn't misread that, because I was probably tuckered out after doing the Versa Climber, Mr. Eric Telly trying to kill me over there. But once I went down that and looked at his 72, I started looking at his stuff. And I just drew inspiration. Like you're saying, where do you get it? I don't know. It was just in a fleeting thing I saw, and I was like, wow, that's
place,
inspirational, man. And then I was on my phone in the parking lot of Landau Performance looking at, like, dude, Pete Carroll's the man. Like, look at this guy. And so, I don't know Pete, I've never met him. But the point is just to see him continue to chase greatness, and his shape, like the physical shape that he's in,
so
is
important,
inspiring.
Right?
It's like, man, look at this guy, to lead 1% athletes. He's walking the walk. He's talking. I don't know Pete, but the point is, he would not be that successful for that long if he wasn't a 1%er crushing it. I draw from people like that. Like that. Those are the things, man. I'm like, that's dope. You know,
so awesome
to sit in a little sleepy town like Kittredge here and have 150 episodes. That shit's dope. That's why I was like, you know what? Yeah, I would love to be a part of that, because I love that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff inspires me. I'm like, that's cool that you're keeping this thing trucking. And every once in a while I come in here and now you said this is the fourth one. I'm like, wow, it's been the fourth one.
Crazy, yeah.
That's crazy.
Every year.
I know.
Every year.
Yeah,
You're on my top of my list, dude. Maybe that's why we do it at the beginning of the year. We're like, oh shit, January's here. I better start working on Mark.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, but anyway, that's my long-winded answer is, there's a lot of people, you know, there's people that some days I just watch them and I'm like, man, that kid he's starting, but his work ethic is just immeasurable right now. And the unknown is unknown to him too. And his white belt mentality is so inspiring, because sometimes when you get into things, you kind of lose some of that. Sometimes you lose sight of that. And so, man, I draw inspiration from that stuff too. I watch my kids. Like when I watch my kids have grown up in a world that is foreign for kids to grow up in.
Totally.
There's not a lot of kids growing up in a mixed martial arts gym with some of the best fighters in the world, coaches in the world, people around them in the world that are just good people, and learning that from a tiny little crawling age, that if you'll sacrifice, dreams are possible. If you'll be committed, dreams are possible. If you'll find the right people around you, all those dreams you have become reality. Like, to grow up in that and see, and I watch my kids and I'm like, damn, was that the intention? No, I don't think so. Like, the intention was, I loved mixed martial arts. I was pretty good at it. Someone believed in me more than I believed in myself.
Man.
And then next thing I know, I'm watching my kids. I'm like, my kids are killing it. They're not perfect. Trust me, they're not perfect.
Yeah.
But when I watch them, it's inspiring. I'm like, man, I was not like you at 16. I was a knucklehead. I was a good athlete. I was a decent student. I came from a shitty upbringing. I was a knucklehead, man. I was the kids my kids are saying they don't want to hang out with.
Right.
Literally.
I'm the same way.
I know. And I'm like,
same way.
I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
And I look at my wife sometimes, I'm like, are you sure those are my kids? Because, man, they're pretty damn responsible for being teenagers and young 20-year-old, you know. So those things are inspiring. You know, that stuff is cool. You know, and look back, that's super dope. I watch that and
it's different. My kids have inspired me to do things differently in life. I mean, just having kids. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh shit, it's real now. Now I got to be an example, right?
It is real.
Like, yeah.
I've seen some careers really turn a corner in a positive way when guys had kids.
Oh, I'm sure.
I've been like,
Right.
wow, where's this kid been?
Do something now, right? Like it gives you a different type of purpose.
It does.
For sure.
It does. It's
For sure.
And it's cool, you know. So, but yeah, I would say it's from all kinds of places. I just think you gotta keep your eye on the right population of who to grow from.
Yeah, dude. I couldn't agree more. Well, shit, we're coming up on 2 hours and we haven't
Oh, that's it?
We've just had a deep ass conversation.
Keep crushing it. I'm down.
So if you have a little bit more time,
I'm down.
I want to talk about some big announcements this week,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Going to Mexico City probably pretty soon, right?
Yep.
That's
February.
huge. Yeah. And have you traveled out of the country much lately? I know you were supposed to go to Singapore like last
was there.
year. Oh, you were?
Yeah, I went to Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah. The one place we didn't go out of the country
Well, I
that
thought,
we were supposed to go was China.
canceled or
It was
something?
China.
China, that's what it was, yeah.
It was Shanghai. So
Okay.
we were supposed to go to Shanghai. The entire card got canceled, and they moved it to Vegas. So,
Yeah.
but everywhere else, domestic and foreign, we went, except for China.
It's crazy.
So,
Back.
but yes, so what you're referring to is Brandon Royval just recently fought for the world title in Vegas against Pantoja. We unfortunately came up short and lost our world title fight in the UFC. And we've obviously been learning from, that, and there's great sadness from that, and there was just some heartbreak for sure. But when you put yourself in that position, you put yourself in a good position even if you catch an L. For example, Albazi was supposed to fight Moreno in Mexico City in February. Albazi, unfortunately, got hurt. I don't know what happened. Something happened. He pulled out of the fight. Their first call was to Brandon Royval and said, hey, man, we would love for you to fill in this fight. This is a title contender fight again. And the winner will go and face Pantoja again for the title. Now,
Oh, yeah. Let's go. In Mexico City, too?
Well,
Badass.
the title contender fight is.
Yeah.
So, and Moreno was already slotted to be there. And obviously,
That's the championship fight that I honestly wanted to see.
it's a huge fight. So, one of the things I told Brandon, and it goes back to what we were just talking about. I read this in a book, is the level of your adversaries tells a lot about who you are. I read that in Gary Player, who used to be an old school golfer. Mm-hmm. They called him the Black Knight. He was from South Africa.
Really?
Yeah. He was from South Africa. They call him Black Knight because he was always wear black everything.
Sounds like me.
Yeah,
That's all I wear, dude.
Yeah, I love black too. So
it helped out in that blood training. The
Yeah,
other day. I was
bet.
the only one
I
that was
bet.
still looking fresh,
I bet.
except for my red hands.
he wrote a book. One of his books he wrote was called Don't Choke. And I remember when I was reading that book, one of the lines he said is, the level of your adversaries says a lot about you. And it resonated to me when Brandon Royval got the call to go fight Brandon Moreno. And I said, man, yeah, we came up short in the title fight. And I told him that night, we didn't tonight, but it doesn't mean we won't. And so the level of his adversaries say a lot about him. He's world-class level. Both those kids are world-class level.
Incredible. That's the championship
it's an amazing fight.
That's the fight I wanted to see for the championship
Right.
a while ago.
And one of the things people say in MMA sometimes, which is always interesting to me, is we're not getting 12 weeks to prepare for that fight. We're getting 7. Well, one of the biggest complaints that fighters have, whether they win or lose, is they have to wait this long period of time to go refight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They don't play every week. They don't fight every week. Like, the NFL, we're playing every week for 16 weeks. That's what we do, blah, 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 blah. Major League Baseball, you play 3 billion games or whatever.
Crazy.
Okay.
NBA, hockey.
Right.
It's insane.
So if you had a shitty night the night before, you get to go redeem yourself the next day and you pick yourself up and you go do it and you got 162 games in Major League Baseball and you get to go out there and crush it. And so one of the things being said is, wow, quick turnaround. Well,
It's not really that quick.
we trained our asses off for over 12 weeks, more than 12 weeks for the title fight in December. He's in good shape still. He knows that he belongs in there. That's the one thing. We didn't win, but we know we belong in there.
It went 5 rounds.
And so we know we can do that. That's the other thing. And we're confident in his skills and we're confident in his upcoming growth. And he's of world champion caliber. So, yeah, please, let's go do it. And none of it's easy. Like I said, the winning part, the losing part, none of it's easy. Like, your adversaries are going to be the best in the world, but we wanted that, and so I had to laugh because my wife and I were watching the other night. We were watching Dave Chappelle, and we never watch comedy. But we both were just like, man, we need to laugh a little bit. And so it was just her and I at the house, and she saw this thing on Netflix. She's like, you ever seen this? I go, I never watched that. So we turned it on. Well, one of the things Dave Chappelle was saying, she was saying, when you have a dream and you dream like, man, one day I'm going to go train at Factory X, or one day I'm going to be in the octagon in the UFC, or one day I'm going to be the CEO of this business, or one day I'm going to have these 3 kids, or one day I'm going to have this husband or wife. When you have that dream, and then, now Chappelle made this funny, so you can go watch this thing, but he was hitting this point. You ever look around and go, shit, I'm in the dream. I'm actually in this dream. Like, I am literally training at Factory X. I wanted to do that. That's what I'm doing. I'm literally the CEO of this company. I'm in the dream. Like, these are the people I saw that are in my dream. I'm in the dream. I'm doing it. And so that's the thing, man, is like the dreams we have, sometimes we lose sight, and people always say like, okay, enjoy the process. I feel like that was Chappelle's way of saying, hey, enjoy the process. Like, bro, you're in the dream. If you had the dream and now you look around and you're like, oh shit, this is my dream. I'm looking around, bro, smell the roses, And, and so Bobby, the reason I've always been enamored with roses, and I think, you know why? Because when I was a kid, I lived in my grandmother's house. In the front of her house, she had this rose bush, and it grew up the gutter, like accidentally, but it also had like a little trestle that it grew up to. It like spiraled
so it was like
up.
10 feet tall?
It was tall, this thing. And I remember how beautiful the roses always looked in the summer, but how shitty it hurt when I'd run into the thorn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of the things I've always loved about roses is that the beauty of the rose is so amazing, and how pretty they look and how good they smell. But that they have that like feminine, but then the masculine thorn they have. It's like, man, that could be just a true measure of just life. Like, look at a rose, man. The beauty of it, but also there's thorns along that way. Like, bro, when you're in a field of thorns, there's always going to be another rose bush. You just got to get through the field of thorns. And so it's like, same with the roses, man. And so that's the thing is like, when you hear that, I think when you hear that whole saying, take time to smell the roses, Yeah, but also look at the thorns, because the thorns are amazing part of that.
Probably going to have some scars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's my whole point, is like when you're in that dream and you're looking around and you're like, man, there were some thorns you had to get through to be there. But there's also a lot of roses, man. Don't forget about that stuff. Don't forget about, you looked around, you're like, man, this is a sold out crowd in T-Mobile Arena. They're here to see me fight for a world title. Bro, that's living a dream. Like, that's a dream. We dreamed about that. Did we come up short? Yeah, we came up short. But like I said, we didn't that night, but it don't mean we won't. And we learned a lot of valuable lessons. And kudos to our opponent for being a world-class opponent and,
That was a
and
true
doing his
chess
thing.
match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it came down to playing a sport as of fighting a fight.
And
in
we,
my opinion.
And at the end of the day, however you want to dice it up, we didn't get it done. So we got to go be better. No problem. Challenge accepted. Thank you. But the opportunity to go do it again and be right there knocking on the door again, why wouldn't you say yes? So
In Mexico City.
and that's
have you been there before?
No, not to Mexico City.
Holy shit, dude. You are in for it.
Yeah, I bet.
It is one of my favorite places. When I was touring, it was one of my favorite places to go in the
Really?
world. In the world.
That's dope.
It is badass, dude.
I love it.
Like, just the level of fans, the level of intensity, and you have two Hispanic fighters that are going to be fighting there, right?
Yes.
Mexican Americans.
Yep.
Like, it's going to be off the fucking charts, dude.
It'll be sweet.
And the hotels there, like, just that whole hacienda style. I hope they put you guys up at a nice spot. I hope that you guys are at the W downtown. I'll tell you all the best spots, man. The W downtown, you walk into the shower and it's bigger than this room. There's like
Sweet.
25 shower heads. There's a hammock in the shower. Like,
Wow.
It's total Scarface type.
Yeah, it's cool.
Type stuff. But across the street from there is great little. It's known as the Gringo Bar, but Charisma, awesome margaritas.
Nice.
Got to go there, have a margarita. But the fans and just the whole lore of just Mexico and like kind of that culture and
passion.
like the street corn and
Everything
everything that happens outside of it. When I was on tour with the Killers, not my favorite band, right? Like, incredible dudes, not my favorite music, I should say, right? They set attendance records in Mexico City. And it was the only time out of all the heavy metal bands that I've worked for, Slayer, Tool, all these bands, right? We set these attendance records in Mexico City, and the fans went so nuts that they have this barricade that they put up to keep people from rushing the stage. And sometimes people get crushed against that, right? Sometimes people die, especially at like, you have Rage Against the Machine or somebody like that playing. There's people that literally get crushed being in that front row because it's a steel barricade.
Sure.
It's bolted together. You cannot break this shit. I think we did 3 nights there back to back, and they literally welded the barricade to the floor, and then they ran drilling pipe out of like an oil drilling or water drilling rig. I mean, 6-inch pipe through it and welded it and barricaded, welded it all together. And those fuckers still broke that shit. Dude.
Wow.
Nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
It was just insanity, man. Like, you can see the energy of a crowd
passion.
like that.
They have
It's
passion.
unbelievable passion.
Yeah.
And then the police escorts in and out of there, and the cartel. You can't even sell merch there. The bands can't sell their own merch because the cartel owns it. And you can go out in the cartel alley and get anything that you want branded UFC. I guarantee goddamn to you, and it'll be stuff that is unbelievable. It's better than the stuff that they give you. Probably,
Yeah, I bet.
dude. It's insane.
That's dope.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So that's the thing is you have cool opportunity like that. We have a lot of just. Recently, we've booked a lot of fights in this first quarter, and
There's so many fighters now at a top level, man.
Yeah,
It's
at the highest level,
and good dudes,
super good dudes, and that's why I love doing what I get to do, because you surround yourself around those people. They demand excellence from me the same to them. We do it together. They come in here, you're like, man, that's a good dude. He's not just some punk ass. And that's what it's about, is surrounding yourself with that. And so, yeah, man, it's I feel blessed. I feel blessed. It's something that, like I said earlier, in my career, I'm more on the twilight than I am at the beginning, but it makes me really want to smell the roses more too when we go do this. And it was such an incredible feeling to watch my team perform in 23 and just the proudness I have of, my friends and my family and their support, and, people like you guys constantly supporting us. And when you feel that and you see that, it's just, again, it goes back to purpose and your why, and are you impacting, and how is all this happening? And so we use a crazy ass vehicle in fighting to do this. I'm sure there's a much easier.
Coolest, I think. I fucking love it as a sport. I think it's, from a spectator standpoint, it's fucking incredible.
It is incredible. It's cool. You know what's funny is my wife and I, before I ever started coaching or owning Factory X, obviously we grew up in the boxing era. Mm-hmm. And one of the goals my wife and I had when we first started dating is, man, we need to go get like floor seats in a big boxing match. And at the time we were broke as a joke, so we could never afford that. And then as I started training in 98, and the UFC inception was 93, so it was right around that genesis of all that. One of the things my wife and I said before I was ever this world-class coach of these world-class athletes was, man, we need to go watch the UFC on the floor one day. And it's incredible because for 16 years now, I've been cage side coaching world-class athletes. And like, that was the dream. That's my point, is like, we talked about that. And then when sometimes I look around and people know my name, and they're talking shit to me a lot of times. They're saying hey and congrats sometimes. But the point is like, I'm looking around going, man, I just wanted to be a spectator on the floor of a sport I loved. And I'm sitting here in this dream my wife and I had, and now every weekend, 40 plus weeks a year, I'm out at cage side, walking into the damn cage, smelling the blood and the canvas and the whole thing, and going, holy shit, this is a dream. I'm living a dream. Like, ultimately, that's what we're doing. And so, that's the cool part of the whole thing is that. And
it's badass.
It is. And to not lose sight of that either. Is to not,
because you easily could, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I got to experience a couple fights this year, but the definitely bucket list was I got to go down to Austin and watch you be honored there at UFC Fight Night, and Cody win that fight, and just had an awesome week in Austin. It was fucking great. But
that was an emotional
super
night.
Cool.
It was a very emotional night.
I had no idea they were doing that too when I scheduled it. I was like,
that's
oh
cool.
Shit, I just walked in the building and all of a sudden they were honoring you, and your family, your whole family was there.
Yeah.
So rad.
Yeah, it was really cool. The UFC reached out to me and they said, hey, coach, every year we do the Stuart Scott Foundation, cancer awareness, all these things we're doing, Jimmy V, like the whole thing. They said, a lot of people say no to this request, so please don't feel like you're obligated, but we'd love to send a crew, ESPN crew out, and if you're interested in telling your story about just how you've continued to battle through this cancer thing, we'd love to put it out there. And I said, you know what? I would do this only because I want to create awareness, but more importantly, I want to create hope. And so I asked my family, I said, hey, I'm down to do this. If you guys don't want to do this, no problem. I'll just take this on. But if you guys want to be a part of this, that would be dope,
They all crushed it.
Yeah.
Film crew included, man.
Like, the film crew crushed
editors, everybody. It was awesome, man.
And, so I got so many messages, Bobby, from people after they did that tribute, just about hope. And so I was like, you know what, man? That was the whole point. Yeah. That was the whole point, is not to bring the spotlight to me. It had zero to do with me. Excuse me. It just had to do with hope and awareness and faith. That was the other thing. They asked me, one of the first things they said is, how'd you get through this? I said, my faith. You can't tell me that's not divine intervention for a bee to sting me, get a staph infection, and then find a tumor in my kidney.
It's the wildest story, dude.
That's divine intervention.
Yeah, 100%.
A bee being the messenger. Like, that's the whole thing. And so it was like, man, and you know what was crazy about it is they said, hey, we want to fly your family out to Austin. I was like, bro, I got a fighter there. I know, but we want them to be in the arena and see this thing live. I said, okay, that'd be cool. I asked my family, I said, hey, you want to go do that? They were like, yeah, we'd love to. Plus, more so they wanted to be there because they wanted to see the fights and watch Cody. And I was like, okay. But they're like, no, but we'd love to do that. So then they said to me, hey, we want to take you out into the arena to watch the tribute with your family. And I was like, bro, I have a fighter fighting in like an hour and a half. I said, the only way I'm doing that is if you bring my coaching staff and Cody out with me and we get to hang out for whatever duration the video is. And they said, yeah, no problem. So we go out to the arena. I've never been so emotional other than when Zach Cummings retired and fought Ed Herman last year. That was an emotional. I've never been so emotional in the cage ever, except for these two times. But in the cage for Zach Cummings when he retired, that was a crazy thing because of our history together and long time relationship. Yeah. But anyway, they said, hey, you're coming. We want you to go out and bring Cody and your coaching staff out. And I said, cool. We went out there and I'm thinking, man, and it was freaking emotional to watch that story on the big
dude, I was emotional. I was like, shit, I didn't sign up for this, dude.
Me either.
I got blindsided by it,
me
bro.
either.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you the cool part about the whole story is the coolest part is the hope and the awareness. The selfishly cool part was getting to have a triumph story and not a because a lot of those stories unfortunately end in...
there were some stories that night that were not...
Agree.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that the ESPN crew said to me is, we're really glad to air your story too, because a lot of these stories unfortunately end up terminal. But yours is more of a triumph story, so we want to air that as well to give some hope. And I said, I told you that's my whole point and reason of doing this. When we sat there and watched it, I had to tape Cody's hands, wrap his hands before going out there because otherwise we weren't going to have enough time to be prepared. We were going to have just enough time to be prepared for the fight because we usually take about an hour to get warmed up total. And so putting us back there was going to be about an hour. So I had to wrap his hands early. Then he came out in with a commissioner with his hands wrapped early. And so we're sitting there.
Not to mention the guy that he was fighting was from Texas.
From Austin. Yeah, he's from Austin. So, exactly. And so we go out there. There's no way to not be emotional from that, especially as Cody being one of my fighters and our close relationship and my staff and my family and the fans. They introduced me at the end of the thing, and that place was just overwhelmingly crazy cool, like cheers and whistles and the ovation from them was like overwhelmingly cool when they did that. And I was like, man, am I supposed to stand up? You know, like, what am I supposed to do? Everyone's
They didn't give you any instructions?
No, I just stood up and I was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But I was like I was really filled with emotion. Well, the selfish part of this story, other than the hope and the whole thing, is Cody looked at me, he's like, there's no damn way we're losing this fight tonight. And it was a very similar feeling that when I got diagnosed with cancer, when Chris Gutierrez fought Frankie Edgar.
Oh my God, he was on fire that night.
Right, and so it was a very same feeling, and just the gratitude and the closeness and the respect for life and the hope and the whole thing, it just resonated through your bones. And yeah, man, I mean, Cody went in there and had an amazing performance and slam KO, which is very rare.
Which was like. The one thing, I'm glad I was there. I picked the perfect one to go to for the year.
You did,
It was
actually.
awesome,
You
dude.
did.
It was so rad. And, but anyways, I don't think they caught it on camera. Like, Cody walked out to like Mariah Carey or something.
Yeah, it's his new song
That's
now.
like his thing,
It's
dude,
dope.
right?
That's dope.
Yeah.
I showed him the one with ODB, and Mariah Carey. I said, dog, you got to run on this version too. It's pretty sweet.
I love that.
Yeah,
about
me
him,
too.
Dude. Like,
me too.
No fucks given. Just fucking let's go. But his opponent was from Austin and walked out to like Johnny Cash after that.
A dope
right?
country song.
So
yeah, it was dope.
I mean, just the exact. I mean, there was a lot of booze going on.
Oh,
and
yeah.
shit. And I don't even think they showed the walkout, but I wish they would have. Man, it was fucking awesome.
That
being
was
there.
dope.
I'm so glad I got to see that, and then to see Cody win that way.
I know, it was
first
cool.
round slam.
It was very cool.
Go back on Fight Pass, watch that.
I know.
For sure.
And that gave him the catapult to fighting Bo Nickel in April.
Huge
on
fight, right?
UFC 300.
Huge fight.
Yeah, huge
I
fight.
can't wait to see that.
Great fight. A fight that,
I can't wait to see that for Cody.
me too.
Yeah.
And he can go showcase what we all know he's about. And so you talk about opportunity presenting itself. Well, you got to take advantage of opportunity and, or, you know, like I said, your adversaries say a lot about who you are. That says a lot about who he is. And so it's cool, man. It's a really cool, it's just a blessed life to live for sure. Taken a lot of L's, took some L's in December. I've taken some L's in life, but I've won way more than even the 70% overall winning percentage we have in 16 years shows, you know. And so that, you know, I just hope if anybody learns anything from me is that they learn from my L's and don't have to go learn them themselves and say, man, I'm gonna take that little nugget and I'm gonna go run this thing and go, you know, become the CEO of this thing or the best dad in the world or husband or whatever it is. So, you know, and I always say the true measure of me as a coach is not our wins and losses. It's my fighters that aren't fighters anymore, and I see them in life, and I see them being great dads, see them being good business people, great leaders, husbands, wives, like all those things. That's the true measure of me as a successful coach, ultimately. That's what it's about. The wins and losses are events. And trust me, I'm super competitive and want to win everything.
Yeah. Let's go.
And I'm a shitty loser, and I'll always will be. But that is the true measure of who I am, and that purpose, that why, has come in time. I've learned that this isn't just about the wins and losses.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing it, man. You've been a huge inspiration of how I run this podcast and why I do it too. And I'm honored that you're the 150th, dude. I think it's so fucking rad. Thank you so much, man, for just being that light and sharing that with so many people through everything, through your cancer, all that sort of stuff, man. I'm so grateful that I know you and that you're willing to share that with the world. So I think it means a lot.
I'm humbled and honored to be here, and I am blessed that God's putting me in this position to continue to do what I'm doing. And, you know, man, it's, I just, like I said to everybody on this podcast, is just go find your purpose and find your why. And if you're searching for it, go give yourself clues and create consistent habits to find it. It's not lost. It's just you haven't organized it yet. We got to go organize that thing. And when you find it, though, it becomes really hard, just so you know. Because when you find purpose, it's not easy. That's the thing, is you think like, okay, I find purpose, it's done. No, it's just the beginning. It's just the genesis of the whole thing. Defining the purpose, creating legend and legacy is a lifetime pursuit. And it's the reason why I've called our team party the Legend and Legacy Party, because that's ultimately what it's about, is building that over a lifetime of what we get to do and celebrating those guys for what they did that previous year.
I love your Legend and Legacy quotes that you put on Instagram.
Oh yeah, thank you.
I've taken so many of those. Like, I have a spot in my journal where I write down quotes.
That's
and
dope.
kind of where I got them. If I don't know exactly who it was from or who to credit, like, but I've taken a lot from you, dude.
Yeah, that's dope.
That's
awesome. Thank you, man. And last thing I would say is just proud of you, man. You keep killing it. I'm happy to see your success. You know, when I was on here in your 4th episode ever, in
the closet over there.
Yeah, it was fine with me. But the cool part is there was purpose, and that's why you're at 150. That's why you'll get to 1500, and like those are the. I'm really just happy for you, man. It's a cool thing, and I love to hear the people I know on here, and I love to hear people I don't know on here. And you know, my son and my daughter always say my favorite podcast to listen to is the Mountainside Podcast.
Really?
Yeah, they say that all the time.
That's awesome. I love Brooklyn. We've had her in.
Yeah.
Wyatt, I follow on Instagram, and
Yeah.
you know, I've met them. I think I've met Wyatt before. Yeah, I met Wyatt at like a bare knuckle fight or something.
Oh
dude,
yeah,
of
you
all
probably.
places.
Yeah, you probably did.
Yeah, I met your whole family there, and
He's as tall as you now.
I love them all, man. So
Yeah, thank you.
No, it's crazy.
Yeah, he's. But yeah. So anyway, just congrats, man. I'm really. Again, it's always an honor and a privilege to be here. So thank
Dude,
you.
it honestly wouldn't be possible without your support and everybody that supported us, man. Like it means the world to me. I probably still wouldn't be doing it. So I love all you guys, and you especially, Mark, man. Thank you so much.
Of course, bro. Appreciate you.
Real quick, we're not done yet. Go follow Mark on Instagram. You have an incredible Instagram page. You do legend legacy quotes. You do all this just really cool inspirational stuff. You're one of my friends that I purposely go and check up on. I'm not on Instagram all that much anymore, but like when I am, it's like, okay, I got to go see what Mark's doing. I gotta see what, you know, so I love you. You're a great follow. And then recently you started a YouTube channel too, which I think is incredible, dude.
Yeah, recently.
It's like I get to hang out with you for a week, but I don't physically have to be there, right? Sometimes it's on the golf course. I love the ones that you guys shoot in the gym.
Yeah,
I think you guys
funny,
should do
right?
more of those.
We
where
will.
It's just like the fighters and just hanging out. It's like a hangout, right? It's like a podcast almost.
We started the YouTube channel recently. It's called Outlaw Logic, and I just love that title. One day I'll probably write a book and call it that or whatever. But the point is that just wanted to give some behind the. I think anytime I watch something, it's behind the scenes. I love watching that kind of stuff, and so
I do too.
I wanted to give some behind the scenes things, and we're actually gonna.
There it is. Derek's got it pulled up right there.
Oh yeah, the Outlaw
But the
Logic
YouTube
stuff.
channel is Coach Marc Montoya, right?
Well, yes, correct. It's
Okay.
And the Outlaw Logic
So go
is
and subscribe to that, and then you can get the Outlaw Logic episodes. And there's more content on there from you as well.
There's tons,
it's
and
so badass.
we'll have a bunch coming up here this 2024. Where we got some ideas of what we're gonna do, and I enjoy golf, so
I like
sometimes
the ones with you and Caruso.
Yeah, Caruso.
So, we're in the process of getting a new table.
Nice.
I was gonna have it built to have you and Brandon in here at the same time with that strap.
Oh, nice.
So that'll be fitting. That's
Hey,
will
we'll
be
do
the
it
first
soon.
time. But I would love to have you and Caruso on and just let you guys go at
Let's
it.
do it. You would love Caruso in here.
Fuck
Caruso's
yeah,
one of my
let's go.
favorite people in the world. But
I've gotten to know him just because of these, dude. So.
I know he and I together, for some reason, it's kind of a comedy act. It's not even purposeful. It's just kind of the energy he and I have together. And so, he's one of my favorite people in the world, and he's such a knucklehead that I love having him around. But I would love to come in here with Caruso. We would absolutely. Your audience may not catch the same inspiration this one is giving, but they would catch a lot of belly laughs.
Dude, yeah.
They would catch a lot of belly laughs.
Yeah, this one we got very deep. I think the deepest we've ever gone, you know?
That's how it
we didn't
goes.
even talk about hunting or anything.
I know.
It just proves the point that, you know, we're at 2.5 hours. You got to come back, dude.
I will. I will.
Any conversation in here with you is always a good one, dude.
Well, it's a pleasure, man. Thank you, brother.
Let's end
Appreciate
it
you.
on that note. Mark, I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for making the trip, dude. I love having you in here, and let's go 2024, man. I'm excited for you, the whole entire team, your family, everybody. So let's go.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you, and just thanks for doing that. And we're not miles away; we're millimeters, and
Absolutely.
and it's right there. And so we're really excited. But
You and the
killing it.
team's welcome anytime too up here. So
Thank you, brother.
I think
Appreciate
we showed
you.
Brandon a good time at the lake the other day.
Yeah, I know. It's
Hopefully we didn't get him in trouble.
That's hilarious.
Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. If you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com.